What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fandomnation, your one-stop shop for all things fandom. Tonight we're talking Halloween. Um, Someone brought up the idea of a Halloween H20 sequel while discussing a potential Jamie Lee Curtis return. Some Scream 7 news dropped. That movie continues to get weirder and weirder by the day. We have Avengers leaks, which I know Johnny's a bit of a comic nerd when it comes to that stuff. I think Randy has some background in it too. Hopefully, they can help walk me through it because I'm fucking confused. And then we have a lot of wrestling talk. That's going to be the really the main focus of tonight's show. There's a lot to go over. Some stuff that won't even be on the graphics that show. And then we're going to reveal what we're doing for our Andor content a little later on. But joining me for this venture this evening, it is my partners in crime. Start off with the general himself, Johnny. What's going on, man?
Oh, not a whole heck of a lot today. I'm excited. It's Daredevil night. You know, my group of people watching it aren't able to get together until Thursday night, so I gotta wait a couple days to actually watch it myself. But I'm excited. It's a big week. Daredevil Thursday night, new WWE game Friday. It's an exciting week for me.
Yeah, I Jade mentioned earlier today that Daredevil's out tonight, and it's like, yeah, just out at the totally wrong time for us. So, we are doing Daredevil coverage on this channel. We will be reviewing the episodes, but we are going to run about a week behind. There's just no other way around it in terms of when it drops, and so it's not going to attract the eyeballs as if it was fresh and everything was current. But it is what it is. What's going on, Tommy B? Um, After months of nagging on me and multiple failed efforts today on gaining access to it, I finally got to sit down with the family and watch the first two episodes of Dragon Ball Daima. So I might give my thoughts on that when we go off air, um, or as we get ready to go off air. But yeah, a lot to get into tonight. Randy, what's going on with you, man?
Oh, not a lot. Just enjoying the bipolar Virginia weather we got going on here. One day it's 25, the next day it's 60. It just doesn't know what it wants to do. But like Johnny, I'm excited for Daredevil this week. Obviously, um, for me anyway, with the AEW pay per view coming up this weekend, I'm really curious to see what the go home show's like tomorrow night. But other than that, yeah, it's not doing too much. Hopefully, things are going well for you.
We're all a little under the weather here, but that's to be expected this time of year. Also joining us tonight, he's actually someone that put together one of the topics we're going to talk about a little later on in the show. It's Maddie. What's going on, buddy?
What up, buddy? What are you doing tonight?
Just excited to talk about some of these topics and very confused about some others. So bear with us as we go through all this. As always, big thank you to our channel sponsors. Without them, be very hard to be here. Jason at Backtrack Cinema, Ryan over at College Nation, Maddie, who's on the show tonight, and Jesse Storytime Spectacular. Definitely check out at least three of those four channels. I don't think Mad Inc. is a channel, but check them out. Support their content. Not only are they good at what they do, they're fantastic people. And I think that's first and foremost. If
I've got my own channel. It's just on Pornhub.
I take it Johnny's a big subscriber to that. No, he's denying it. I feel like the truth is going to set him free. Uh, um, without further ado, though, oh yeah, by the way, like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all to keep up with all of our content. And as always, if you want to send in a super chat to support the channel, that would be appreciated. God knows Google robs us of everything we do get. So, all right, let's start here. Halloween H20. I need to stress this is not a rumor that I've heard. It's a topic that Drum Dums, Lee McCoy, covered over on his channel. I liked his pitch for it to an extent. we've now all heard the reports about Jamie Lee Curtis at least being approached about returning, which I just got to shake my head. And, I spent some time over the last week really thinking about the last conversation we had about this. And there's really only two ways that I welcome her back. And that the second one will wait till next week. And the first one is this. Look, Halloween H20 is a film that has grown on me over time. It was not my favorite when it came out. I believe not too long ago, Johnny, you were part of that watch party, right? The Halloween H20 one?
I know I did one with you, but I cannot remember if it was back in we were streaming on Facebook days or if it was the YouTube days.
Oh, no,
I know
okay.
we did one.
We did one on Facebook. It was the very first one we did before Fandom Empire, the YouTube channel, ever launched. But you, Kieran, and I recently did 5, right? Halloween 5?
Yes.
Yeah, so we did 5, and I think it was Mike Bish, myself, and Dean when he was on the channel that did H20. There might have been someone else on that one too. I don't remember. But look, I'm against Jamie Lee Curtis returning to this franchise. I don't think it's needed. For all the reasons why most of us don't think it's needed, tune into last week's episode where we get into a good half an hour discussion about it. But I will say this. If her hand gets forced and we have to have her back, one storyline I would consider revisiting is Halloween H20. Kill Resurrection never happened. And in Halloween H20's world, it's only 1, 2 H20 that exists. And to a lesser extent, 2. They really don't reference much that happens in Halloween 2. So again, you'd have to have, Michael didn't get his head cut off at the end of H20, or it was someone else, or some sort of weird supernatural twist on it. But one of the main reasons why before this, and shout out to Braden Timmons, who, if this never happens, he's doing some very high quality fan films on this particular topic. The Last Nightmare Part 1 came out at the end of last year. The Last Nightmare Part 2 comes out towards the end of this year. It's a film that we supported and covered on the channel quite a bit. But if they were to do this in Halloween canon and it be an official series, I do love the idea of Josh Hartnett coming back and reprising his role as John. And having Jamie Lee Curtis in a lesser role, a much lesser role. I think Josh Hartnett's kind of on the rise again. And I would just like to see what a older, more mature him could do with that role. I think you could really take that specific series in a different direction than most Halloween movies. That being said, I still come back to I wouldn't use Jamie Lee Curtis very much in it. I would have Josh Hartnett as the star, and JLC is more or less in a supporting role of sorts. So this is one that I would definitely be for. How do you guys feel about the idea? Like, if we have to have her back, how do you feel about the idea of continuing on from Halloween H20? I want to start with Johnny.
I mean, I'd be okay with it, if I'm being honest. I always, I enjoyed H2O. As far as the sequels, everything post 1, it's a second or third favorite, of all of the sequels post 1. So, I always enjoyed it. I always liked it. And I think you're right about Josh, being, back in the limelight and sort of relevant again. Having gone so long as sort of being an afterthought in Hollywood, it is great to see him in the last few years, getting his shot to be in projects that are significant and important and actually get to see him again, which I love seeing. So, I mean, I think this is an opportunity to, I guess you could sort of say, right a wrong of history. Where after he did H2O, he went off and got extremely hot there for a while and then fizzled out, as a lot of young actors and actresses do in Hollywood, I never came back. So I'd be for it. I think it's a relatively, I don't want to say untouched air, but relatively um there aren't many clouds that hang over the H2O timeline. If you take away Resurrection, if you just stop at the end of H2O, it's very sort of plain and sort of basic, yet still good. There's no crazy, there's no chaos, there's nothing that you look at and go like, yeah, but I really don't want to have that as part of the story again. And I think H2O provides that. It provides a place that had good storytelling, had good acting, and a great cast. Let's be honest, if you look back at that H2O cast, you really have to go, damn, for a horror movie, that's a hell of a cast.
Let's not forget that, like, back then too, Hartnett and Williams were not very well
Yeah.
known.
So it's like, there's a lot of people in that movie, outside of them. Obviously, you got LL Cool J,
He's one of the best parts of that movie.
absolutely he is. I mean, him and is it Alan Arkin?
Alan Arkin, great too, fantastic in Sons of Anarchy and so many other things.
Just amazing
Justified.
character actor.
Yeah, like I know the movie's very PG-13, and we can get into the 10,000 mask switches in the movie and JLC's power trip, which happens again many years later in Halloween Ends.
It's almost like they should have seen it coming.
But when you look back at like the best cast Halloween movies, if it's not number one, and I'm not talking just two characters, I'm talking your whole cast. If it's not number one, it's right up there with, honestly, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. I'm not an Ends fan in terms of the movie, but it's fantastic casting, great acting. Feel dirty saying that. Anything else you wanted to add on the H2O front? So they could sell you on it. It's what you're saying. You'd sign
Absolutely.
up. Like
I think they could quite easily. Because like I said, it's a relatively I don't want to say unaffected, but it's a very, it's an easy jumping off point. Where ease of entry is not very long. You just need to watch one. Really, you only need to watch one NH2O to get the lay of the land very easily. So ease of entry is simple. Like I said, there was a great cast. Great, the story was good. It wasn't layered and weighed down by a lot of questions that were left unanswered. So really, you just have to come up with your ending. How do you make Michael still alive after getting his head chopped off? And I'd prefer they do it in a more interesting way than they did in Resurrection. But I'm interested. I'd be interested to see where they go with that. Do they lean into the supernatural, or do they write their way out of it better than they did for Resurrection, which would be interesting. So yeah, I'd actually be very interested in an H2O sequel, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Again, it's not my first choice, just because I feel like you do have to move on from Jamie Lee Curtis. And the way that you and I are talking about it, and we'll get Matt and Randy in here in a moment, it's more like a Hartnett starring thing, and JLC's like there as a supporting role.
She doesn't have to be the main mover of the storyline in an H2O story.
Starring Jamie Lee Curtis.
I mean, you can say that just for the name value, but
yeah,
doesn't have to be true.
Dustin says he'd love to see a sequel to H2O and just go back into a different timeline. No Laurie Strode, very minimal, but leaning toward no JLC. Not sure if they could get Josh or Michelle back. They could. I think they could get either one of them back at this point. For both of those, you're going to pay for them, but the material is going to have to be good. You're going to have to sell them on like, this isn't going to be a piece of shit.
I think honestly, I think the price is lower to do an H2O sequel now is much less than it would have been in the early 2000s.
They did. Don't you remember? It was Halloween Resurrection.
I said an H2O sequel. With Josh and Michelle The only one you'd have to really shell out big bucks to outside of Jamie Lee Curtis would be LL Cool J, if you even brought him back, which if I did, it'd probably be for like a 1-episode quick hitter.
Yeah, if I was writing the story for it, I don't think I'd have him in it. I don't think there'd be a reason to have him in it.
He could have the Liev Schreiber in, was it Scream 2? You saw him on the
1.
Was it in 1?
1, 2. He was on the TV in 1,
Okay.
and then 2 he's a massive part of, and then 3 he dies. And he
You
seems
have
to
him
be
in
the
that,
only cast member that hasn't been cast to come back in 7 yet. But give it time, I suppose. Although he might be a little more picky about what he's willing to do. Him and Timothy Oliphant, for that matter. So, hang on, there we go. Joel says, I thought it was Josh's choice to step back concerning his career, and he went to Utah. I'd be on board for his return. They had him under contract. They were prepping multiple movies that we've covered here on this channel for him. You'd have to go back to when it was Haddonfield and Beyond, probably summer last year, early summer. We ran one on H25, which was a thing, and I forget what the other one's titled, but the Taken Shape books cover them at length. But they had an opportunity to bring him back, and they just couldn't get anything going, So we'll have to wait and see. Matt, how about you, man? If JLC's back, would you sign off on an H2O sequel?
In a very minimal role. Like when they start, when you see people's cast, they do the cast at the beginning. She'd be and Jamie Lee Curtis. She wouldn't be in that. No. And one thing I love to see, we would assume that Lance Guest would be the father. One would assume so. We could bring him back, which I think would be cool.
Wait, what?
As Josh's dad.
Oh, from H2.
Yeah.
Yeah, with all due respect to him, I think if you're going to cast a character like that, you don't go and cast someone just because they were the character in 1981. I think you cast someone who can act the role out better. Like, I know people weren't on board with how the Tommy Doyle character was received in Halloween Kills, but let's be honest, Anthony Michael Hall was the far better choice compared to who was the original Tommy Doyle actor again?
Brian Andrews.
Brian Andrews, who's just not in a very good place in his life, and it wouldn't have worked, right? So
I don't see why it couldn't work. I mean, I think he still acts from time to time, but I think he's mostly retired at this point, but it would be kind of cool to see him back. I'm not just a fan. I think her story has been told so many different ways over the years. And I just think we're at the point that we don't mind her at this point. We just don't want to be overloaded with her in this movie. And they don't need her to carry a movie anymore.
I would kill her right out of the gate. Not necessarily resurrection style, but have Michael's big return be killing her. And then, you have John, aka Josh Hartnett, on this mission to figure out what happened, and we can have some flashbacks with her involved in select episodes, but really focus on John. Our friend Joel might not like that idea, though.
Well, I know. I never told Randy about this idea I had where they would intertwine characters. A lot of people what I wanted to do was the kid from Resurrection, the guy Miles. I think that's what his name was. Anyway, the guy who's in front of the who I was having relationship with the girl. Deckard.
Deckard, okay.
Okay.
So in
Deckard
my
was really
version,
going to be Stephen, as in what Tommy Doyle named him, and he never knew. So in an effort to get away from it all, Paul Rudd married Kara. So they had those 2 kids, and they took over the baby, and the baby was Deckard, grown up, and
they
that's
did.
where I was started from there.
Yeah, they toyed around with trying to tie everything together, and I'm not against that, but I do think for clarity, I think it's best to just keep it as simple as possible. They've already done enough different timelines, and it's clearly a horse that they are going to keep on beating. Dustin, I'm not going to highlight the comment, but I believe Johnny and I both appreciate that. Whether you're from either place, much love for everybody, and just want everybody to be safe and healthy, and whatever's best for their family. Hopefully, that's what it gets. I know people want to. I'm not saying Dustin's doing this, but people love to try to draw people into like political fights, and believe me, I could go off for about 2.5 hours on this channel just on this shit. But I won't, and I'll just say I want everybody to be happy and healthy, and it's a really fucked up world we all live in right now. So, Randy, bring us back on track here to end our Halloween discussion. Will you sign up for an H2O sequel series?
I will do my best. See, for me, I mean, I like the movie, and I enjoyed, what we got out of it. Obviously, I'm not on board with having a prominent role for Jamie Lee Curtis. I could easily just be like, if she dies, she dies. I mean, that's kind of like the whole thing. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Just
But
have a Dolph Lundgren cameo.
why not? Anyway, Michael takes off the mask as Dolph Lundgren, and never mind. But I think as long as the story is good, like I think if we can give us, it doesn't have to be wholly original, but gives us something that builds on characters we know, gives us a little more backstory into them, and catches us up on how they grew and how they carried on after surviving H2O. I think that would be kind of neat. Obviously, if we can find a way of getting rid of Jamie Lee Curtis altogether, I mean, I like the idea of something happening to her, and I was like, okay, what happened? Let's figure this out. But I really would like to kind of get a deep dive on some of these characters and what they've been up to and how they've coped with survivor's remorse and things of that nature, so that we can at least get attached to the characters enough that if something does happen to them, we feel for them. And that's always a big part of like what I like in just stories in general. But I want to see that more in horror than anything else, because if you can make it, if you can make me feel something in a horror, anything, whether it's video game, movie, TV series, something, um, then you've done your job, because I want to feel something when somebody dies. I don't want to just be like, oh, look at that. Poor son of a bitch. He just got his head lopped off. That's cool. Look at all the blood. And for some people, that's fine. For me, I want good characters. I want good character development. I want to feel for them when they're being chased. I want to feel that dread. I want that experience, because horror in general doesn't frighten me. It's the idea of what could happen to the characters that more or less that attracts me to horror. So if they're going to do it right, and they're going to give us a good story, and they're going to bring back the right cast and give us something different, unique, but also hints of familiarity, yeah, I'm on board. And obviously, we'll just off Laurie Strode and make everybody happy in the long run.
I love what Johnny brought up about the cast earlier in terms of H2O being so well cast. look, at the end of the day, if JLC is going to be a part of it, she's going to have some sort of important role if it's not tons of screen time. But I do love the idea of like, hey, we're going to do a movie that primarily centers, or a series that primarily centers around John, played by Josh Hartnett, and you can have Michelle Williams in an important role. If it's more John going on a mission, then she probably isn't going to pop up a ton because he'd probably handle that himself. But if it's not, and it's about Michael coming after them, then all of a sudden John's on the table and Michelle Williams' character's on the table. Their children would be on the table, right? Like that's if they even stayed together too. Like they're very young in that movie. They're teenagers, right? So I believe John's 17 in the movie. It was his 17th birthday. So there's possibilities. It still wouldn't be my first choice, but you could sell me on the idea of it still being interesting if done right. I do agree with Joel's comment that she does bring in a bunch of money, which is the whole reason why they've gone back down this road again now. Again, I'm holding out hope nothing comes from it, but if it does, I don't think any of us are going to be surprised at this point in time. But let us know in the comment section down below whether you're participating in the live chat or watching after the fact how you would feel about a Halloween H20 sequel series. Shift gears here. This one came out today. I have no idea what's going on with this movie at this rate. It seems like basically everybody is returning, and I think the two biggest names we haven't heard yet would be Liev Schreiber and Timothy Oliphant, and I think those guys are probably hard sells on this project, but almost everyone else is returning. So, Matt, I'm going to send it down to you first, man. What the fuck is going on with this movie? Because there's a bunch of dead characters all over this.
Dude, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, what is she gonna be laying there and have a dream, and then you're gonna see the three ghosts above her bed? I don't know. Dewey, I think will be a ghost for sure. Should be, or they're doing a flashback scene. That's the only two things I can think they're doing with Dewey. Matthew Lillard's not going to be a ghost, in my opinion. So I don't know what they're doing with Scott Foley. We know he got shot. He's dead because he got shot in the head. What if they're probably doing some flashback scenes with him? I don't think he's a ghost. But it is interesting.
I'm lost. Like, I'm just fucking lost at this point because some might argue Scream hasn't gone down the supernatural route, but then some might argue, well, 5 and 6, depending on how you take Melissa's character, are they ghosts or is she just crazy, right? Like, I felt like in those movies it was more an implication of she's just a little unwell, if you know what I mean. But if they're going to take Scream down the supernatural route, then yeah, they could be doing all sorts of different things. The Scott Foley one that we discussed a few weeks back is really weird. David Arquette coming back, I think some people probably have been calling this as soon as they started to bring a bunch of people back. Again, I don't know if they'll get back Timothy Oliphant or Liev Schreiber. I seen someone in the chat. Where is it here? Justin says, at this point, Randy is coming back too. Then has Jamie Kennedy been canceled for anything? I don't think he has. I'm not throwing that out there to be a dick either. He's never going to Hollywood.
Think so.
So yeah, I think that's a safe bet, considering everybody else that's come back. Um, I would expect Jamie Kennedy to appear too. Again, I think those other two are harder because Oliphant and Shriver are really picky about what they do. Um, but like I made the joke in our chat earlier, like, hey, like, at what point do we just title Scream 7 Scream All Stars? Like, or Scream Greatest Hits? Because at this point, I just have no fucking idea what's going on. Like, we know we're getting Sydney and Sydney's family, and there's conflicting reports on whether she's doing the Laurie Strode from Halloween H20, where she actually goes by a different name now to hide her identity. I've seen yes, that is the case, and I've seen no, that isn't the case. So that remains to be seen at this point. But if it had been one or two people coming back, I would have been like, okay. But like, we're at 6 or 7 people now, and the list just keeps growing longer. Johnny, help me out here, man. We've watched some good movies in our time and some bad movies in our time. And I'm a fan of Scream 6, minus the last act getting really corny. At what point do we say there's just too much going on here for this to be a good movie? Or, is there a chance it could be good and it's just way over the top? It's important to know that Kevin Williamson's directing this thing. So I'm completely lost.
It's all going to come down to the story. That's going to be the most important thing here. I think for me personally, the more and more of these that we get of characters who are firmly killed off coming back to play these characters, the more and more I think the idea of a meta stab movie inside the movie is what's going to happen. And I'm for it. Again, as long as the writing's there and it's good. It's just there's too many of these actors and actresses whose characters were killed off in movies so far ago. Not just Dewey, who was a relatively recent killing, but even going back to Stu and Randy if he's back, and all of these other people who are coming back as characters that have been dead for more of the franchise than they've been alive. You have to do something that's not just, oh, it's ghosts. Like, oh, but they can see, like, that's eventually that's stupid. And even flashbacks, unless they serve a genuine purpose, then you know then who knows. But I mean, Chris there in the chat, I think at least to a certain degree, I think that's what they're doing. That again, that's my opinion, that instead of it being full meta like New Nightmare was, that it's they're playing themselves, playing the character in the new Stab remake sort of situation. But which makes sense, because that was a Wes movie. It's all going to come down to the writing, and the more and more times you cast these ghosts in flashbacks or things like that, it gets harder and harder to suspend that disbelief and have them be part of the story. And unless you're going to do something really crazy, like do like a partial period piece inside, you know what I mean, like sort of have acts, things in the past affect things in the present, sort of have the story play out that way, where you're bouncing back and forth between multiple timelines to tell one coherent story, which is possible, I guess. But again, comes down to the writing and how you pull it off, because that either becomes a giant mishmash of fuckery or it becomes a great story. We don't really know which. We don't know where this is going to end up. But as these actors keep, signing up and signing on, it just, I don't know. It's we're reaching a tipping point for me where if they're not going with the meta, actors playing characters in a new Stab, actors playing themselves, playing their character in Stab, then we're going to reach a point where I'm just like, I can't get into the story. It's too much, and if you're bringing all these people back for like one big flashback, that's still too much for me. Like, it's just, at that point, it's nostalgia for the sake of this. You know, at that point, it's member berries, not in service of story. You know, and if they go down that route, which, you know, if you've been around here long enough and we've been talking about this, I've been on the meta train for months. You know, even as far back, I think when Matthew Lillard was first rumored to be circling, I started suggesting maybe we're gonna get, you know, maybe he's playing, uh, you know, maybe he's playing himself, playing the character in the new Stab movie, and that's, you know, because then you can get Sydney responding to this, and the character is responding to these people, thinking they're, you know, the character when in reality they're not. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I like it. I think that's a great way to go. You know, it plays on having Stab in the meta of the franchise already. It allows them to give another nod of the cap to Wes Craven, who did that in A New Nightmare. It plays well within the Scream franchise, where you can have your moments and have your memories and your member berries while you get a new and original storyline that's not, you know, stuck in the past 100%. So it's it'll be interesting to see how it comes to be, you know. And I'm, you know, I've said this a lot. I'm cautiously optimistic that it's, you know, new story, it's original story, it's good story, not just nostalgia bait, member berries, you know, remember when this happened, for an entire movie, because that's just not interesting to me. I need something fun, I need something interesting. um you can play with the meta, and I'm okay with that. You know, like we've talked about, you and I, huge Supernatural fans. You know, the French Mistake is one of my favorite episodes of the whole series because they play with the meta that way. You know, they step away from it and look at it and, you know, tell their story, tell their type of story in an out there way that still fits in the universe. I'd like to see them sort of go down that road here. They did it a little bit in Scream 3, you know, playing with the Stab cast and having that be a part of the story, you know, that the producer was, you know, like, it's just doing it that way. I'm, you know, bringing it back to that and sort of doing that again, you know, making fun of their new franchise and the remakes by remaking Stab with the new actors who actually look like the characters that they're, you know, like, there's a lot of ways you can do this that it would be fun, interesting, intriguing, would fit in the universe, and you can play around it a lot. Um, you know, you can't get too crazy with that. You know, you can't have you can't have Matthew Lillard playing his character, you know, playing the character who's actually the killer. That doesn't make sense. But, you know, you can play with it and you can have some fun with it. And that's the most important thing. You can have some fun with it, you know,
Yeah.
and that's what I want to see. I want to see them have fun with it. Bring these actors and actresses back in a way that's conducive to a new story, not just servicing old story, and that isn't purely nostalgia bait, you know? And if they can hit on all of those, they have a
Well,
chance to do something
hang
fun
on,
and special.
hang on. Let's be real. Even if they are going that route, it's nostalgia bait. Like,
Well, yes, no, but it is. But it's
there's
the
no
good kind.
getting out of
It's the
that.
good kind of nostalgia. It's nostalgia in service of story, as I've
I,
said, you know, many times. Because
I'm
the
with
original would be
you.
different.
I'm with you and Michael here, who sends in the super chat about Scream 7 has to be a new Nightmare thing now. I hope that that's what they do. I also don't think you can call the movie Scream 7. I think you need to call it something else. Scream something. Um, but, you know, I think that'd be a wonderful route to take this, because then you're taking the limitations off of many of the returning people and you can give them a little more to do. That being said, even with Kevin Williamson back, even with the nod to the late great Wes Craven, I don't know if they have the balls to go down this route. So let me ask you, Matt, would you sign up for the new Scream being a new Nightmare thing? Randy, you can follow up.
Mm, not really. I just, I mean, I just think Scream's different than uh, Nightmare. So no, I wouldn't be a fan of that, Randy.
So this question has kind of been burning on my mind. When did Vince McMahon start writing movies? I mean, got to bring everybody back, right? It's such good shit. I mean, whatever.
Got to get a
Honestly,
golden egg in there somewhere.
right? Um, thinking about it, if you go the route of New Nightmare, which New Nightmare is one of my favorite in that series, it could work. I mean, you could sit there and have be like, oh my God, that's Matthew Lillard. I wonder who he's playing. Like you could sit there and play with it and have actors be kind of over the top versions of themselves. And you can have, the actual people who survived the Scream films just kind of overreact to that sort of thing, which, I mean, you could call it Scream the Stab Chronicles for all I care. But it's just, I don't know how this works if you're going to keep bringing all these characters back, especially ones that have died or supposedly died or have disappeared off the face of the world. It's one of those things where you have to find a way to creatively interject them into the story without rehashing just common tropes that tend to be the downfall of a lot of these types of movies that try to cram too much into a film that just really needs to be something simple. It's it's just like we were talking last week when we saw you know the still of someone being of Ghostface stalking somebody, someone complaining about that. I'm waiting for the people to complain about there's just too many characters at this point, because that's what it kind of feels like. It feels like it's going to be overstuffed unless they're smart about it, unless they don't have to be ghosts. It doesn't have to be straight up it doesn't have to be them doing, a stab reunion or a scream reunion or whatever it is. If they can find a simple way of bringing these characters together that fits, that's cohesive to the story and adds depth, then awesome. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's possible at this point because it feels like it's just overstuffed unless they go full meta with it. You know, like Johnny, French Mistake is one of my favorite Supernatural episodes because they just had fun with it. And if that's where they're going, if they're going to go French Mistake, if they're just going to have absolute a blast with it and just kind of go off the rails, but in a fun way, not oh my god, it's a horrible train wreck, I can't stop watching. Then I think it'll work. But ultimately, until we know what the actual, even a synopsis, like even an idea of what the story is, we really don't know if this is going to be something spectacular or look at that spectacular crash. I mean, that's kind of where we're at this point. I'm hoping that bringing in all these nostalgic characters, having the remember berries and things like that, just their idea adds to rather than detracts from the legend of Scream as a whole.
Yeah, I think they're all incredibly valid points, man. Um, Also, big shout out to everybody in the chat. Chris, Travis, what's going on, man? Entertainment Wizard, Joel, Justin, Dustin. These guys are being very active right now, keeping the discussion going. So, really appreciate it. We can't obviously mention every single comment just because there's not time, but if you desperately want to get something in, we always encourage send in a super chat, but we will highlight them and read the ones that are most relevant to what we're talking about. Um, I, you know, I like what Chris and Johnny are selling me, and what Michael had said earlier. The be a an homage to the Wes Craven using the stab films. Um, I think it'd be a lot of fun. It might not be what people want to see because I know now that Matthew Lillard's coming back, they're like Stu, 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 and then it turns out we're not even in the same universe anymore. But I just think there's endless possibilities there. Let's be real, the handling of the Melissa situation, whether you agree with it or not, really back them up into a corner. um I do agree with what Randy was saying in terms of starting to feel a little too bloated. I think we were there 2 or 3 cast announcements ago. And I'm not convinced they're going to end because, as someone pointed out earlier, like at this point, we'd be pretty shocked if JB Kennedy's not involved. And I'm sure they'd like Leave and Timothy back, but again, I think those are harder sells. Although, doing the meta thing, if the story's good enough, I could see both guys returning. It just depends on scheduling and how heavily involved they are. Let's see here. Travis says Hawkins returning in Halloween Kills after pretty clearly dying in 2018. Loomis constantly returning after kind of dying in every scene. Hey, now, no throwing shade at Loomis. He's my guy. No, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I like Chris's point here too. New Nightmare was way ahead of its time. The people weren't ready. Not that they are now. The trope has been done so much at this point. An original idea in 2025? Nope. But nostalgia is king. Yeah, it is. Try telling that to Kathleen Kennedy, though. Anyways, let us know your thoughts down below on Scream 7, if it's going to be titled that. The continuous amounts of returning cast coming back to this film. I'll say this. I would love it to be something meta over some big, nightmare sequence Sydney has or something like Johnny was mentioning earlier. I'd fucking hate that idea. I would not be... It would feel like a waste. It would feel like a big, big waste. But let us know your thoughts down below, whether you're watching live or after the fact, on David Arquette returning as Deputy Duty Riley in Scream 7. All right, we're going to shift gears here. If anybody wants to bring it back to Halloween H20 or sequel series or Scream 7, you will need to send in a super chat. We're going to move on. Just to sort of highlight the rest of the show, forewarning, we are going to look at some Avengers leaked concept art, and it is legit, so it's going to give a little bit away here. Not that I understand what the fuck's going on in these images, but and then we're going to talk a whole lot of wrestling tonight. We're going to look at the Elimination Chamber, the Raw that just passed, what's going on with Mania, and then we're going to reveal our Andor content creation plan.
Hey, gentlemen, I had to leave.
Alrighty, Matt. Maybe send me a message about that question regarding the heel Cena turn and NWO and Austin and all that,
Okay.
in terms of what your take is on it, so I can relay it on air.
All right.
Take it easy, buddy.
All right, but bye.
A well-deserved KK jab. Low-hanging fruit. Sometimes you have to. All right. Let's dive into this, guys. There's Avengers concept art that has leaked. And it's legit. And I just want to very quickly go through them, and then we'll spend some time going through them again. But it does raise a question that I've seen people talking about. So there's the first image, clearly Doom. Same image above. And we get the image below with Star-Lord, what's-his-face from the Doctor Strange movies. And I assume their take on Young Avengers. I could be wrong on that one. I'll come back to everybody in a second. The top image there, we have what's supposed to be Benedict Cumberbatch as Strange all the way to the left, Doctor Doom, and I have no idea who any of these other people are. I have no idea what I'm looking at below. It looks like a gray Vision with Star-Lord. White Vision. And then we have a Black Panther looking dude and a whole town of Hulks. So we're going to stay on each one of these images and go over them. But let me start off with this. A lot of people, myself included, just assumed, because it's easy to forget that they're shooting these back to back this year, are just like, oh, okay, well, these are Avengers Doomsday leaks. But theoretically speaking, you're shooting back to back. You definitely have concept art for both movies, not just one. And a lot of what I've seen from guys like John Campea, Christian Harloff, Adam Hlavik, uh, those guys have been like pretty adamant that they believe this is Secret Wars concept art and not Doomsday concept art. But I didn't feel like any of them did a good job of explaining why that is. So let me pose the question to the both of you, starting with Johnny. What movie is this from?
Well, I don't particularly see anything that can tell me with any sense of certainty which film this is from, because all I'm seeing is just a generic Doom on the throne in Latveria. Um, anything more than that is really hard to intuit. I mean, unless this is like a, he's enlarged the shield of Captain America and that's what's on the wall behind him and that's why it's Secret Wars. I don't know. But I don't really see anything that screams Secret Wars, so my gut is it's probably Doomsday, and this is just, Doom on the throne in Latveria.
But you have no
Yeah, there's really
inclination.
nothing in it that can sway me one way. I mean, could it be from Secret Wars? Absolutely, it could be. Um, especially if we don't see Latveria in Doomsday, then that's distinctly possible that it would be Secret Wars just based on that. So, like, if they have that knowledge that Doomsday will not take place in Latveria at any point, then yes, that would make me think Secret Wars, because to me this looks like Latveria. Um, so if they have that knowledge, then I could see why they'd say Secret Wars, because obviously they'd know it's not in Doomsday. So other than that, I don't know, because to me it just looks like the generic throne room of Latveria.
Thoughts, Randy, on which movie this could be and why?
I agree with Johnny. Unless they come out and strictly say that Latveria is not going to be shown in Doomsday, then yeah, it would be Secret Wars. But to me, this just looks like a generic shot of Doom on his throne, and it's probably just kind of give you an idea of maybe, what he's probably going to look like, and that's really all it's for. Maybe just to help with some of the lighting or some of the types of things they want to have in the throne room, but other than that, it's too generic to really give you an idea of what movie it's from.
All right, so let's get first of all, I do like the image.
Oh yeah, it's a great
Uh,
image.
It
like
is for sure.
this does not mean that this is Doom's final look, people. By the way, I own literally every Star Wars concept art book from every movie released, including some of the seasons of TV. And there are development phases of concept art.
This is a
Um,
fairly generic Doom comic look, so uh, you know, it could look exactly like that and be one of the most comic authentic costumes we've seen in the MCU, or it could look absolutely nothing like that,
correct,
So
because when Kylo Ren was referred to as the Jedi Hunter in early stages of The Force Awakens, the character looked much different than
we had Kylo masks that
the
basically looked like somebody handed him Darth Revan's mask and said, "Here's my homework, copy
yeah.
it, change it a little."
I mean, to me, I feel like that's what Kylo's mask kind of ends up being, is a combination of Darth Revan and Darth Vader. But there are some earlier concepts where he looks closer to like Ultron from Age of Ultron than he does anything else. So let's go through these images and you guys can help me figure out what the hell's going on here. So clearly, we are going to get a scene of Star Lord, and I always forget the other guy's name,
Wong.
Wong, with, I'm assuming the girl to Star Lord's left is the one from the Hawkeye show, which I
Yep.
never watched.
Yep.
And is the far right Miss Marvel?
I think so.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
I think to the left of Kate Bishop would be the one beside to Star Lord's left or right. I think that's Ant-Man's daughter.
Cassie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Cassie. And to the right of them, I don't know.
To the
Crazy
right. To the right
outside thought. To the right of, assuming that is,
Okay.
that my think is, I think that's America Chavez on the right, not Miss Marvel.
But even if that is
It
America
it, look
Chavez,
it looks
to her
more
right,
America
it looks like
Chavez to me. I think that might be Franklin Richards.
in the far back,
This tells me nothing. Help me out, people.
because the one on
to the second from the right when we're looking at it.
Okay.
Oh, what about? Oh, I'm trying to think.
Who's Franklin Richards?
He is the son of Sue.
Actually, those two could be Wanda's kids. Remember at the end
Oh
of
no, you're right. That's absolutely who that is. No, you're right. That's clearly teen. Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely, you're right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's exactly who that
because
is.
at the end of Agatha
Yeah.
All Along.
Yeah, no, that's
Agatha
you are
Harkness, yes.
exactly right, Randy. Exactly.
So I know nothing about Young Avengers, who it includes, etc. But you can sell me on Star-Lord and Wong babysitting more or less the Young Avengers in either one of these films, and it having like some comedic overtones to it for sure. Now, does this image at all make you think it's from one movie or the other, or no?
To me personally, I think the bottom one could be Secret Wars. But it also could be Doomsday just because them going, okay, we got to get the kids involved. This could be near the end of Doomsday leading into Secret Wars, but you know it's bad when you're bringing in basically the kids who are inexperienced and the shit's about to go down. So again, this could be from either or, but my lean could be Secret Wars.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think Doomsday, because I think Secret Wars is going to be more about the other worlds and that sort of thing than it's going to be about this. I don't know if the Young Avengers would play much in Secret Wars versus Doomsday. The only thing I'm sort of coming out of this photo and looking at it and seeing it is that Miss Marvel or is that America Chavez? Which one is it, and where's the other one? That's what I'm asking myself now.
The one thing people can take
it's actually making me lean towards, and this is sorry for cutting you off there. The thing that's making me lean towards that's actually Miss Marvel is the scene where America ends up with Beast in the credit scene from the Marvels.
Oh, you're talking about what the hell's her name?
Yeah, that was America Chavez. That ended up with Beast at the end of the Marvels when she jumped worlds.
Well, America Chavez was in Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. The Marvels, I thought in Marvels it was Photon that ended up in.
Oh, it might have been. You think I don't
because
it's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Because she saved Captain Marvel, and then she ended up in the other world where her mother is one of the X-Men.
No, maybe. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. It was a stinker, so I don't really remember it too well.
The one thing we can take from this, though, is when they're doing concept art, they're doing concept art on early scenes of either summaries of the movie or the script itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you can expect what we're seeing to show up in one of the two movies unless it gets cut late.
Yeah.
So I do like the possibilities there, and I do kind of like the pairing of Star-Lord and Wong. Like we
That's
know all
comedy
the Guardians,
gold right there.
We know all the Guardians aren't coming back. We know Dave Bautista's not coming back. I believe there might be another one that's also not coming back. I can't remember who though. But let's keep moving on here, fellas. So the top one, I know this is not a great quality image, and there is a better version of it online, but that is Doctor Doom in the same throne we've seen before, and off to his left is Doctor Strange. So help me out here. Why?
My guess is that's another Earth, which leads me to think that that's Secret Wars. because while it is Doom on a throne, it's a different throne than we have in the first photo. The shaping isn't the same as the first throne we see him in, so it's a different throne there versus there. So I think this is just another world thing, which is why I think that the only other sort of even semi-identifiable character is the woman in the back there on the right. I think that might be Sue Storm. So I think this is a world that's different. I think this might even be the Doom is a good guy world. Because there is one of them out there, I'm sure. So I think that's one of the many different Earths we'll see during the course of Doomsday and Secret Wars, which leads me to believe it's Secret Wars, playing off of the many Earths theory that Secret Wars is going to be built on.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, the multiverse really kind of makes it difficult to follow sometimes, just because so many different versions of different characters. Obviously, this one seems to be a good Doom, with talking to people in his kingdom so it's with Strange by his side. So that, and it's so, yeah, to me that would say Secret Wars, just like because
to be clear, sorry to cut you off, Randy. The full image of this shows the blonde-haired girl there at the back, holding the guy who you can't see it, but he's on his knees. Kind of looks like Nathan Fillion from the side, but he's being held prisoner in this photo. So I don't know if that changes if it'd be good Doom or not, but the full photo shows that better. I had to crop it out.
Gotcha. But yeah, like I said, this one, because of the whole multiverse thing and with the way that top picture looks, I definitely would say Secret Wars. Bottom one, I'm not so sure. Obviously, White Vision is from WandaVision. So, and he took off at the end of that. We don't know what happened, but I guess we're gonna find him. So that's a good sign that he gets to come back. But I that one really doesn't tell me if it's Doomsday or Secret Wars, unfortunately.
I'm leaning Doomsday, just because of the sort of lack of chaos. I think this is earlier in it, before everything sort of kicks off and goes too crazy. This sort of reminds me of the Thor playing video game scene.
Yep.
That's the vibes I'm getting here from that. So that would make sense that Quill is the one sort of going through the stuff with him, because he himself has a lot to learn, having been off of Earth for as long as he has. So it's an interesting pair up. So I'll be excited and interested to see the context surrounding that sequence.
All right, let's go to our last two photos here. We have who I assume is supposed to be the new Black Panther, and a town of Hulks. Help me out here, because the new Black Panther makes a little bit of sense, but why is there a ton of Hulks?
Well, it's just the three.
No. It's, again, this is one of the where I had to crop it. The whole town is Hulks. Wonder if I can pull it up here.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'd have to see the whole thing, because nobody else in the photo looks Gamma.
Let's see what I can do.
It could be just a different version of Sakaar. I will say the top photo, I'd say Secret Wars, just because Shuri is the current MCU Black Panther. So
I agree in thinking Secret Wars, because you don't know what it is about just the dress on this particular Black Panther variant looks very Atlantean to me.
Well, is it like as Atlantis won that battle?
That's what I'm thinking. That's sort of a variant there where Yeah, no, everybody else looks pretty normal. It just looks medieval.
No, the one to the right is the girl
Yeah,
is a Hulk.
it's Hulk, it's She-Hulk, and Scar.
No. The girl way off to the right is a Hulk, and then the two off to the left are also Hulks. You'd have to zoom in on it, but like, is there a comic thing where more than
There is.
a few Hulks are around, and does that help? Like, there's also a giant wall behind them. I don't know if you guys can tell.
I mean, this is definitely probably from Secret Wars then, just because I know one of the comic variants where there's like a bunch of Hulks. I mean, it's definitely not anywhere near us, but Old Man Logan had fights with Hulk and his kin, and that's how we get Logan being eaten by the Hulk and then him killing the Hulk from the inside out. But I'm thinking this is Secret Wars as well, just because a community of Hulks, that's definitely a different universe for sure.
This is all above my head. Like, having a really hard time following. So hopefully they have some good exposition for some of this, because I mean, I'm fairly caught up and yet pretty lost too. Like, clearly that's Ruffalo's Hulk, She-Hulk. Who's the one to the right?
Oh, Hulk's
It's,
son
it's
introduced
his son
Uh,
and She-Hulk.
so we're thinking this might be like a different universe sort of thing, because
Oh,
I
for
don't
sure.
think we're fast forwarding 20 years in the story.
No, it's definitely a different universe just because of the medieval getup and the fact that it's like a town of Hulks, or at least multiple Hulks, other than just the three.
Yeah, I count definitively. There's the girl to the far right. There's another one in between She-Hulk and Sun Hulk, and then two more to the left. So, again, it's nothing I have any experience with. So I do wonder, like we were just talking about with Scream, how much will be too much for the average going audience member?
I mean, the Russos didn't do a bad job with the Infinity War saga, so Infinity Gems. So I got to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can handle the juggling of all these characters.
I'm going to step away for a moment, fellas. In the meantime, let me ask you this, and you can talk about it with the audience. But how Princess Fiona on the right? It's funny. What are we looking forward to most with these two movies? And well, the jury is out on whether Logan will be involved, Wolverine. We already know Deadpool on some level is going to be involved in at least one of these two movies. How does he play into it?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously at this point, given what the TVA being involved in, what I'm sure the TVA will be involved with this for sure. Probably more like Secret Wars than anything else, because it feels like that's where like the bulk of the action is probably going to happen. Uh, Different versions of Avengers, different versions of characters that we thought we knew, all showing up in just kind of like a one gigantic battle for sole possession of a universe. That's going to be and that's the easiest way I can see Deadpool getting involved. Just because the TVA will tap him and be like, all right, you got to go in to fix the sacred timeline. Beyond that, I mean, Johnny, what do you think? How would you bring Deadpool into this?
I don't necessarily know if I'd do anything special. I think the best entrance for Deadpool is the most Deadpool entrance, that he just walks in like he belongs there. Like everybody knows who he is already. You know? I think that'd be interesting. Especially since we have to presume it's that Earth
Hmm.
version of it. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun, um, to say the least. I don't know, specifically how we're going to get to the point where we see Deadpool. I mean, obviously we're going to. Um, I think it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they do it because he is such an important character to the overall MCU. Um, Even just Marvel films, being a part of uh, the only good part of the more recent efforts from Fox to make superhero movies. So I don't, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I do think he's going to just show up. Like everybody should know who he is, and they're not going to know who he is because main Earth in the MCU doesn't have mutants. You know, so that's going to be an interesting thing. Because obviously, anything we've already seen because of the Fox thing for as long as we have,
Hmm.
they had to obliterate mutants, and even when they had the opportunity to introduce mutants, they didn't. They just made them regular people. Obviously, I'm talking about Wanda and Pietro, um, who are two of the more prominent mutants in the X-Men universe now, because of Wanda's Omega level abilities and you know chaos that she creates and all of that stuff.
She is a bit OP.
A bit OP.
Okay, I undersold it. Very OP. When she can just say one thing and pretty much eradicate every. Yeah, no
There's
more
a
mutants. Boom,
there's two
gone.
tiers of Omega. There's regular Omega, and then there's Scarlet Witch and Franklin Richards, who can literally sculpt reality to whatever they want using nothing but their mind powers.
Yep, no more mutants. That's all you got to know for Wanda.
Franklin literally created worlds just on a whim, you know? Like it's the same thing. It's going to be interesting how they start incorporating these characters into them. I think once we come out of this, we're going to get sort of a unification that's going to inject them in a way that they were there all along, sort of thing, without them actually having been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously they've had Easter eggs and hinted at them for many different movies, so and shows and things of that nature. So yeah, I think we'll obviously once Secret Wars, not Armor Wars, Secret Wars is done, we'll finally. I think we're finally going to get our introduction to the X-Men and the mutants, and which is it's long overdue. This whole thing with Fox has been done for a while now. We've all been just dying to see who gets recast
Oh yeah,
as the X-Men. So it's time.
there's no
I
universe
think.
where they don't. I think you have to, just based on the fact that you are going to be, introducing some of the most important. You already have, like I said, one of the most powerful mutants that you've already introduced, and it seems like pretty heavily rumored that Franklin is going to come about in the Fantastic Four movie. Like you can't have those two on the playing field and not, and they may very well be the catalysts for this change. I know they've teased the X gene, specifically in the Miss Marvel series.
Hmm.
They definitely did a good job teasing that she was a mutant, before giving her powers that were, was it from the Kree? Based on the Kree. Like,
Yeah.
no, you don't. What are you doing? Just you know, let's make it right. Make our mutants mutants and embrace their otherness is what I want. I want Wanda to be a mutant. I want Pietro to be a mutant. I want Miss Marvel to be a mutant. Um, and you're definitely going to have to do some sort of retconning, um, of that. So it's I I don't know how we're gonna get there, but there are enough powerful players potentially on the board that can do it. So
Yeah, my biggest concern is once we do introduce them, honestly, I don't think we really need to rehash the origins of these characters just because they've been around for so long. But it's fucking Disney. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna try to milk it for all it's worth. And it's like just give us some good mutants. Let's get a good cast of characters that are gonna fit the role. We'll get them in Secret Wars, and that I think they're going to be the turning point in Secret Wars. To be perfectly honest, I think the X-Men are going to be the ones that show up and end up tipping the tides towards the good guys.
yeah, I mean I don't know. It's going to be interesting how we exit these movies, because we know that the mutants are going to be a huge part of the next phase.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we had the layout at this point, what was it? 5 years ago, Feige did a panel at, was it D23 or San Diego Comic Con? Back in like 2018 or 2019 when they laid out
It
the
was
phases.
D23.
It was D23. Okay, it was one of the conventions. I just couldn't remember which one because it was so long ago at this point. But I mean, they basically laid it out that the next phase is the mutant phase. It's the mutant era. So you have to, you know, you can't have a mutant era and not have the X-Men. It's physically impossible, and I don't, I think, I think you'll get sort of an origin story, but not quite in the sense that we get it. I think we'll get an origin story of the new X-Men team,
Okay,
not
I could.
necessarily individual origin stories. Sort of like, look at X-Men, uh, X-Men. The '99 movie. You
Mm-hmm.
sort of had the origin story of that X-Men team while the X-Men still operated in the world. They used Rogue as the origin story while introducing Wolverine to the X-Men, adding him to the team, and the rest of the team had already had their origin and were just parts of life in New York. I think you'll get
So
something like that.
so we know Ryan Reynolds is going to be in one, if not both these movies. My guess is one of them. Um, I like what you said about how like the X-Men could show up and save the day, but my question would be, are the X-Men that show up to save the day going to be the new X-Men that we're going to spend time with? Or because it's multiple Earths and all this stuff, a combination of new and old? Because we know they want Hugh Jackman. Whether Hugh Jackman's willing to do it or not, it's another story. I mean, I'm sure enough zeros at the end of the check will get him back, but
Little from
I,
column A, little
I,
from column B.
I think that's
I
it.
can't see him doing a whole other series of X-Men stuff, right? Like if he's going to do anything, I think this is it here.
This is going to be Hugh Jackman passing the torch to the next Wolverine. That's what this is going to be, probably.
I think you're most likely to have a double Wolverine in this, especially if they cast someone significant. Or not even necessarily significant, but I think whoever it is, you're going to have both Wolverines there, and it will sort of be that passing of the torch moment from one Wolverine to the next. Who they're going to be, I have no idea. But I think you're going to have a mix of the classic X-Men that we've come to love and some of the new X-Men. Who all of them are going to be, I don't know. But I think it's safe to say you're probably going to get, I think you're going to get some version of Professor X and Magneto, some version, I would assume, Storm and Cyclops and Jean Grey. Which ones? I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. It could be a mix of um, the recasts from the Days of Future Past era castings, or it could be the classic X-Men trilogy castings. It could be new versions of them all together. But I think we're going to get a mix of the classic X-Men and some of the mutants that we're going to see going forward who aren't part of that, because you can't just keep reusing and recycling the same X-Men. You're going to have to introduce new ones, use new ones, because there are so many. There's a plethora to choose from, and a lot of them are, significant in the comics that, the movies have made them more significant than they were. X-Men 97 also did that in a big way, but they had a lot of those smaller characters that you don't, you know, you don't think about so much, like your Jubilees. So I don't know. I don't know what the roster is going to be for the X-Men that we have in this. As we get closer, obviously, we'll start learning who's cast, who's not cast, and who they're playing, who they might be playing, and sort of, pin the X on the actor. Once we start seeing castings come out, because you're going to have to. There might be one or two secrets that they can hold off until later in the process, but I think for the most part, we'll know most of who everyone is before we get to the release date in a few years.
I mean, I always say leaks are going to happen. There's no way to be bulletproof with leaks. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if this concept art we see here was intentionally done, but leaks are going to happen. Look at, think about the most shoe-in, forget comic book movie in general, where they potentially could have kept the leaks a secret during COVID. Hardly any people on set. Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire. The first idea that something was going on was a pizza delivery guy ran into Andrew Garfield where they were filming it, which I believe was in Georgia.
Around Atlanta.
And then the big photo leaked. And everyone's like, "Oh no, it's fake! It's fake! It's fake!" And it's like, it doesn't look very fake to me. And like that's during a time where it's easier to keep a lid on things. And it's still leaked. So I do think you're right. I think it's just a matter of time. I think my last question on this topic would be, if we know Deadpool is going to be in it, and I think Deadpool and Wolverine kind of gave it away that that's coming. Can they? So theoretically speaking, let's say they did get Deadpool and Logan back. Could they do it in a way where they're the only two representatives of the X-Men and they continue to hold off? Like, can you do Secret Wars without a heavy X-Men presence?
I don't think so. Especially not if they're going to be sort of the linchpins going forward. If they're the big anchor for the next phase, I think they need to be a big part of Secret Wars specifically, because Secret Wars allows them to do that. It allows them with Battle World to introduce the X-Men in a way that makes sense for the stories going forward. It's unique in that the culmination of Secret Wars sort of allows for the possibility of a merging of two worlds, one with the X-Men and one without the X-Men. And it's going to be... I think you have to have them as a part of that story beyond just Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, Doomsday, I think you could definitely just have those two. But Secret Wars, I think you need a more vast roster than just that, especially if they're going to be a huge part going forward.
The other thing you deal with here is, as great as comic lines are and comic series are and the source material, at most you're going to deal with a couple of 3-hour movies. There's only so much screen time to go around, right?
Yeah, I mean that's just one of those things where if it's a good enough story and the right characters get the right amount of screen time, it'll be worth sitting through 4 hours, really. I mean, when you think about how long Endgame was, I wasn't leaving my seat that entire movie. I didn't care how bad I had to go to the bathroom. I was like, nope, I am going to sit here and I'm going to watch this entire film and not move, because And I'm glad I did, because I didn't want to miss anything. And that's kind of what these movies are going to be like. It's going to be, if you leave the theater, you're going to be like, oh crap, what happened? People are cheering as I'm walking out the door to go to the bathroom or to get a refill, or that's the type of movie we're talking about here. And I think they do it on purpose to ensure that you just don't move from your seat, that you prepare for the long haul. And it's rare that we get those types of movies nowadays. So I'm happy when they get that, if we can get to that level of excitement with these two.
I'm not saying you're saying this, just to clarify, but I've already seen people go and say, "Well, these movies are going to need to be 4 hours long." Let me tell you right now, that isn't happening. There is a 0% chance that these movies are 4 hours long. Why? These are still Disney movies, and they are going to ask that this be tightened up as much as possible, because the longer the movie, the less showings you get of that movie. At most, you will see that maybe a runtime closer to like the Batman, the 3 hour mark. Same with Endgame. But there's not a snowball's chance in hell that either one of these movies are going to be 4 hours. Disney will never in a million years sign off on that. Which, again, as someone who's never read Secret Wars, or any of the take on this new Doomsday, the RDJ version, I don't know how much source material needs to be cut out. Obviously, there's going to be a significant portion cut out. There's just no way to avoid that. You're not doing a series, you're doing a movie. The question is, what gets cut and what doesn't.
Well, it's actually funny because most people think of Secret Wars, they think it's this big, elaborate, huge comic event, when in reality it's not. It's only a 12-issue series. If we're going purely based off the classics, so it is very small. It isn't as crazy as people think it is. So, condensing it down to a 3-hour movie, if you're going to pick and choose your parts of it, I think is very easy to do. It's going to be. The real question is who they're going to change the catalyst to be for Secret Worlds. Unless they're going to all of a sudden introduce the Beyonder at a drop of a hat at some point during Doomsday and have him take his rightful place as the person who creates Battleworld, you are going to have to change that. It's going to be interesting to see who lines up on both sides, right? Because Secret Wars is good versus evil, and I don't, obviously they're sort of setting this up to be planet versus planet instead of good versus evil. That's sort of the way it seems to be going, right? With the multiverse, it's going to be one Earth versus another Earth. So it's going to be
Stupid
interesting.
question here, sort of cut you off.
Yeah.
When you say one Earth against another Earth, one of these Earths are going to be the characters that we know from the previous Avengers films, correct?
616. Yeah, it has to be 616 as one of the Earths, and then the other Earth is, it'll be interesting to see which one they choose. Because we don't sort of they've done a very good job of not defining a lot of the worlds that we've seen, even in Multiverse of Madness. While they were Earth hopping a lot, they weren't totally identifying them in full. We just sort of know events on these different Earths. So that's going to be the interesting thing to see which one it is. The interesting one is going to be Deadpool and Wolverine. In that I don't know if their Earth is going to be a part of it. As we've seen Deadpool and Wolverine, that they're sort of going to end up as mercenaries, I guess you could sort of say, which makes sense since Deadpool is the merc with the mouth. It literally would make sense for him to fill that role sort of as a, a designated hitter for the 616 team. My guess, and this is purely just me speculating, is that we're going to see the Earth, since more and more I'm leaning towards the Fantastic Four is another Earth thing, even though I didn't at the beginning. I wasn't on that. More and more I'm coming to that way, which makes sense because you do need a second Earth for Secret Wars, and having that one would make perfect sense to me. And then you sort of come out of it with a merged version of those two Earths. In that, I think Fantastic Four is going to have some X-Men uh, hints and teases and nods that tells us that they exist on that planet. My guess is you'll likely see Reed mentioning Professor Xavier, is my guess, as a a scientific comrade in arms, being both men are members or future members of the Illuminati. So I think you'll see something like that, where you get those nods that the X-Men exist on this planet, and that's where, on that Earth, and that's where, when it comes down to it, it's it's that Earth against our Earth in a battle for supremacy, which ends up sort of switching about halfway, where the good guys start becoming the good guys and realize, wait a minute, we can fix this and make it, we can merge the two Earths and everything will be great, and then you end up with your unified, we save the Earth by joining together things. That's my pure supposition.
I mean, it makes sense. It's just, I do think it's a lot for the average Joe to take in.
Absolutely, it is. It's, for me, it's sort of a blend of a lot of things. If you're a Doctor Who fan, they did this basically when David Tennant finished his first run. They sort of did that. Almost that exact same thing, only they actually banished the second Earth from the sky, which was actually, the Time Lords tried to interject their planet in place of Earth so that they could survive and escape, but the Doctor wouldn't let. I digress. That's another thing altogether. But I think it's sort of going to be that type of thing, where you end up Earth versus Earth, and that's going to be the story. It's going to be a question of which elements of Secret Wars are left behind and don't make it. I think the big one for me that you're going to have to pay off, because I don't think this is a part of the story that you can leave behind, Secret Wars was the debut of Black Suit Spider-Man. That is the most significant event to occur during Secret Wars, which would come to birth Venom in the future and all of those things that come after it. So I think Black Suit Spider-Man is a mandatory thing that has to happen in Secret Wars. Everything else is window dressing. You can fix it however you want. You don't have to stay truly authentic to the comics for Secret Wars, just based on the fact you will be changing everything about it, basically, with the Beyonder not being there as the catalyst, which I suppose he could be, again, and make the Beyonder a title for someone we already know. But good versus evil in Battle World, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I don't know quite how it's going to come to pass. It's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Well, we will continue to follow with great interest over the course of the next, assuming Doomsday doesn't get backed up, over the course of the next 14 months. Well, there's been a rumor going around about that, and
Bite your tongue.
it wouldn't shock me. At the end of the day, if they need to take extra time to make the movie better, just do that, because the turnaround is very quick, especially shooting back to back.
Tongue biting.
Let's continue on here, guys. Though that went a little long, but lots of good insight there, and their movies we're going to be following. Elimination Chamber was this past Saturday. Pardon me. We had Bianca Belair coming out as the winner of the women's, with Jade Cargill returning, attacking Naomi. We had Trish Stratus and Tiffany Stratton going over Nia Jackson. I don't know what the other girl's name is. I always forget, but the other person. And we don't have enough time on tonight's show to really focus on those matches, so I want to pull up here, guys. Let's discuss Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. Randy, you first. What do you think of this match? Did it do it for you? Thoughts?
There was definitely some moments in this match where I couldn't help but just go, "Holy shit!" Uh, Especially the use of the chairs in multiple ways. Especially first Sammy getting dumped on that open chair, and then KO getting the rest of the chair essentially. There were a lot of good moments. There was also, for the use of some of the stuff they had, the lack of blood kind of took me out of it a little bit. Obviously, this isn't AEW, this is WWE. They got to be as kid friendly as possible, but there's some of the bumps that were taken, and some of the shots to the face, and especially KO selling that, getting basically having his face slammed against a chair that is covered in barbed wire. You would assume he's going to get opened up by that, and nothing happened. Obviously, nothing happened. So, I mean, that was the only thing that really kind of took me out of it, is the lack of blood, just because of what was being done. But overall, I think it told a really good. They told a good story between each other. Obviously, it led to the return of Orton, which is something we all kind of knew was coming. Uh, I mean, all in all, it wasn't a 5-star match for me by any means, but it was good enough that I was entertained and it held my attention.
Yeah, I agree with you on the blood thing. Like, I don't think you need to overdo it, but considering Cody bled, at the end of the night, which we'll get to, they needed more blood, because I thought the story they told and was fantastic. I was right into it, and I didn't have a horse in the race because I like both guys, right? Like, no matter who won this match, I was going to be okay with it. It was about putting on an entertaining show and telling a good story, and I think they did that in spades. But I do agree, a little bit of blood would have helped. Johnny, your thoughts?
It was fun. It was interesting. It was great. I mean, those two, have some of the best chemistry I've ever seen in opponents, in partners, even. So anytime you can put those two in a ring together, sign me up. I'm here for it. I've seen it 100,000 times. I'll watch it 100,000 more. They're that good together. That said, a lot of what you said, the lack of blood, especially with the barbed wire, especially with a direct shot in the face coming to it, just, if you're not going to let them get the color, don't put these things in the match. Like, you could have been, take away the barbed wire off that chair. There are other things you could have done that still would have got the pop. There are other things you could have done that would have been just as intense and wouldn't have led to us being like, yeah, but where's the blood? Barbed wire has a connotation in pro wrestling that when you hit it, you will bleed. Period. It's barbed wire, it's part of the mysticism of the barbed wire. Anytime you see it, somebody is going to get bloody. That's the significance of using it in these matches. It's the intensity. It's the it's the visceral reaction to seeing the barbed wire that somebody is about to get bloody, and that takes anything up to another level, no matter what it is. So to not have it, I feel like you can use the barbed wire. You just can't take the direct shot in the face. In the back, on the body, things like that. Okay, you're right. You're probably not going to bleed through that. Or if you are, it's going to be underneath the shirt, so you're not going to see
You know what
it.
the impressive thing is, dude, is usually with barbed wire, they'll shave it down. And they didn't shave it down for this match, according to
Yeah,
uh,
because they're not bitches.
Fightful. But that's what I mean. Like, I'm shocked, even without doing a blade job, that one of them didn't get busted open.
I'm not, mostly because even with not being shaved down or anything like that, it's the way they used it. It was much more likely that Kevin was going to take it in the hand. It was his hand that kind of took most of the brunt of the bump. So there might have been blood in the hand, but he could have just kept the hand closed and we just didn't see it, you know? But it's... I'm not surprised they didn't gimmick it in any way because, you know, they understand that that's important. You know, if you're going to do it, do it. You know, it's the Mick Foley school of thought. You know, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it for real. You know, it wasn't until he got old and realized, you know what, maybe we can gimmick it a little. You know, um,
I like that. I like that. If you're gonna do it, do it. Stand by
it's
it.
all about what you're going to do with it. You know,
Don't be like Becky Lynch and say something stupid on social media and cross a line and then back out of it. But I'll get to that later.
it, you know,
Um,
I enjoyed what they did. I enjoyed everything about it, but I'll still say it's not even a top 10 Kevin Owens Sami Zayn match. Not even a top 10, which is a statement of how talented these two guys are, that I have seen 10 matches between them better than this one. And I can. I was in attendance for one. Their first major match in Ring of Honor was better than this.
nice.
Both of their final battle matches were better than this. The ladder match in Florida was better than this.
I
The
do
ladder
like
match
Justin's
in California was better than this.
I do like Justin's point here, where he says he thought the ending was weak with the power bomb on the apron. I agree with what this match was built up to be, because it's not like that's a special thing for Owens. That's a common thing for Owens.
I
Obviously
do
Orton
like...
came out at the end, but like I think the package pile driver was the finish to do. Maybe not on the floor in terms of in the match, but
Well, I think teasing that and having Randy come out at that point was the right decision.
Agreed.
Because you do have that moment of Randy's like, okay, this is enough. We're not doing that. You know, that's enough. Enough is enough, and I'm coming out. I do appreciate the ability of both of these guys, that they were able to save what was clearly a botched apron pile driver or apron power bomb
oh yeah, the
with Sammy
first one,
fighting
yeah, that
back.
was
Yeah,
awful.
Yep.
because that was clearly not the spot. Like that was meant to be the spot, and you could clearly see Sammy didn't, you know, they didn't get the right momentum, and Sammy couldn't take it properly, so he fought it off and
Probably
sold it.
sweaty as hell too, slipping
Absolutely.
everywhere.
So like I appreciate that they were able to save that in such a way that it wasn't just a, oh well, it didn't look right. You know, Sammy actually sort of made you believe that, okay, it was on purpose. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. But they worked past it and made up for what was a botched finish otherwise, and made it right. So I'll give them all the kudos in the world for that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed the match. You know, I don't have the history that you do with them, but I like both guys, and um, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, um, honestly, it was probably match of the night for me, just in terms of in-ring performance.
That night,
Um,
sure. On a card with, you know, pay-per-view with what, 5 matches?
4,
4? Yeah.
unless
It
you
was
count the
always
segment as one. Yeah.
it was always going to be match of the night.
We'll move on to the men's chamber match, which honestly, I'm not saying it was bad, but until Punk and Cena got in the ring, it wasn't great. And then the two old farts, I thought, really did a good job of picking this matchup. But I had said, you know, we'll get to the finish in a moment, but I had said to you, and I believe other people in the chat we were in, when Priest rolled up Drew, I was just like really? Like, you know, clear indication of where they're going with that. But I don't know, man. I could sit here all night and harp on the Drew and Punk both deserve Mania main events over a hell of a lot of guys out, given the last year, especially Drew. But I I felt legitimately bad for Drew McIntyre in that moment, being the first one out again. Obviously, they're trying to tell the story of he got in his own way again. But like, it's the same roll up Jay did to him on Raw, and it was like, I don't know. Again, I know you said preach the other day in the chat, but like, Drew deserves better, man.
I've been on that team for the last year. I think Drew deserves, well, I wouldn't say for the last year, because that's, you know, since last WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's about a year now. It's
Well,
crazy.
I mean, just because we've still got about a month and change until Mania, but you know, since the end of since the end of last year's WrestleMania, I have firmly been on stop doing him dirty. You know, and they've continued to do him dirty in stupid ways. That's my problem. Is it's not even fun and original. It's just repetition and stupidity that they've been booking Drew, and I think that's part of the problem. I said it. I can't remember if I said it on the show last week or in the last few weeks, or if I said it in one of the chats. Or if I said it to you directly, is that that's one of the things that has taken the shine off the Triple H apple for me is the repetition in a lot of these storylines. Like I understand that in 2025 in pro wrestling, nothing is going to be original. I understand that. I appreciate that. I like nods to the classic angles. I like seeing angles that haven't been done in a long time. But you're not going to get anything that's original. You're not, because that's the nature of creativity. Nothing at its core is original. Even things that are new are inspired by something from the past. So I think it's exciting when you get something that's new or something that's original or something you haven't seen before, or, new matchups, new things like that. It was just same old all the way through, even right up to the finish of this match. I hated the finish of this match, especially with
It
what
was
came after.
predictable.
Not even that it was predictable, because, if you're watching the show, going back to pre-Royal Rumble, all of us have firmly said John Cena is main eventing WrestleMania.
Yeah.
We've all said that, and that's fine. That level of predictability is, I don't want to say I understand that level of predictability, because, John is still your most marketable superstar to the modern, world. He is your most marketable guy. I understand putting him in the main event of WrestleMania from a business standpoint. I do. I don't question the business here. But a lot of the peripheral bookings have been repetitive and, same old, and you're getting the same stuff over and over and over and over again. And it's ridiculous. The focus is not on the things it should be on in a lot of ways. I mean, the big one coming out of this weekend, the meme with the mom holding the kid above the water and parading, and then there's the kid drowning over to the other side, flailing in the water, and then there's the skeleton trapped to the chair at the bottom of the pool. That meme has been going around a lot this week with, the events after this match being the mother celebrating with the child, and Randy Orton returning being the kid flailing with their arms in the pool, and Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble as the skeleton at the bottom of the pool, because nobody cares about it anymore.
Hey, that was bound to happen. I called it the second that it happened.
The problem is you went an entire pay-per-view and did nothing about it. Did nothing with it. At any point during a pay-per-view, and this is my biggest concern with these pay-per-views in the Triple H era, is 4 matches, 5 matches. I don't mind shortening the length of pay-per-views, because they were getting tedious to watch. I don't need every pay-per-view to be 4 hours long or 5 hours long. That's my main concern with AEW, which is why I liked when they were doing quarterly pay-per-views. I didn't mind a quarterly pay-per-view that was 4 hours long, because you had 3 months to build to it. I do mind when it's every month, every 6 weeks, you get a 4 to 5 hour long pay-per-view. That's a lot to swallow. But when you're doing 4 match pay-per-views or 5 match pay-per-views, and your in-ring time is still an hour and 20 minutes, and your pay-per-view, your premium live event, is still 3+ hours long, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, I don't mind hype videos, I don't mind backstage segments, as long as they're in service to what is happening now. I don't need hype videos. Like, I don't need you to show me events that happened earlier in a pay-per-view while I'm watching the pay-per-view. Okay, for one. Enough of that. Don't ever do that again. I hate it. It's stupid. I just watched it. This is a pay-per-view. I hate the same old hype videos like, oh, well, let's show you the Elimination Chamber store that closes tomorrow that you're never going to have a chance to go to. I don't need to see that. I don't need to see a hype video for Monday Night Raw. I don't need to see a hype video for a guy who's not on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, a lot of it is ad driven for sure. There's
a place for ads, and I understand that. You need to make your money. I understand that. But, you can't tell me you don't have time to do a 6-7 minute backstage segment with Jey Uso or Gunther
no, hey
or
man,
both.
I'm totally in agreement with you. Like I think
Even
you hit the nail on the head.
even if you don't want to do that on the PLE, we need our ad time, we need our ad revenue. Fine, you still have a 2-hour fucking pre-show that didn't even mention them.
Yeah, and you know what though? Like, it was always going this way. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm telling anybody who thinks Jay and Gunther are main eventing night one, you're fooling yourself. Anyone that thinks it's going to be Rhea versus Bianca versus Io, you're fooling yourself. That is not going to be the night one of main events. That's not what Triple H is setting up for. And I think Jay deserves his win, by the way. But it's not the first time a Rumble winner is not going to main event a WrestleMania. It won't be the last time either. Um, doesn't mean I agree with it. And God knows what I say doesn't matter. But on the pay per view front, like I do think pay per view, PLE, whatever. I think the sweet spot's somewhere in the middle, somewhere, because I don't like what AEW does either. They're way the fuck too long, and there's too many of them now. I thought your point was 100% made, man. In terms of when it was quarterly, yeah, sure, you don't mind sitting through a 4.5, 5 hour pay per view. But when you got 10, 11, 12 of them, no, no, it's way fucking too much. And I think the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle. And the question is, which company's going to find it first? Who knows?
WWE has the right time. They just need to up the in-ring content. Like if you start a pay-per-view at 7 or 8 o'clock and you're off the air by 11,
I mean, you don't want to hear Travis Scott's music play 12 times in one show?
I don't want to see Travis Scott, period. Okay,
I'm with you
we'll
on
talk
that.
about that later. But
glad we're on the same page there.
Like if you have a 3-hour pay-per-view, like look at pay-per-views of old times, like when they were actually pay-per-views, you were selling it based on the in-ring content. Like just because it's on Peacock or Netflix does not mean you have to sacrifice that. Like a 3-hour pay-per-view, a 3-hour PLE, you need to have at minimum 2 hours in ring content. Minimum. You can have another 20 minutes roughly of backstage vignettes and segments in service of the pay-per-view, or building up storylines around that. Like, you want to have a Jay and Gunther segment in the locker room and backstage. Fine, do stuff like that. And then you can still have your half hour for ads, your half hour, 40 minutes for ads and shit like that, where you make your dollars. And I don't hate that, because I understand the nature of business. You still need to make your money, and you're not making it with people spending $40 to $50 to see the pay-per-view. I understand that from a business standpoint. From a viewer experience standpoint, fuck off with that shit. Like, I'm not here to see a Topps ad 4 times in one pay-per-view. I'm not here for that.
Sorry about the tech thing there, guys. Sorry to cut you off, Johnny.
Unless you're in an ad support, like I think the thing that they started doing and teasing with the Netflix, getting the TV outside of the US market, and having sort of that ability to, during your commercial breaks, having the interview with with Jackie Redmond talking to Rey Mysterio in the crowd, stuff like that during your commercial breaks for the markets where you don't have that is great. And to top it off, let's be honest, Netflix has an ad tier. Peacock has an ad tier. If you want to do those ads on those tiers, I'm fine with that, as long as you're giving something to the people that aren't on those tiers that's different, like an interview with somebody in the locker room.
I think the problem, sorry to cut you off here, I think the problem with that, though, is, and I'm glad you brought it up, is take Raw, for example. If you're watching Raw, and that's Netflix worldwide, and we're all seeing what happens during the supposed commercial break. And it's decent. It's a lot better than watching a fucking commercial. But if you're watching SmackDown, where most of the world is Netflix, but the United States of America is what, USA?
Yep.
It's fucking awful. It's unwatchable. It's the same fucking 4-minute commercial every fucking 7 or 8 minutes.
It's not even a commercial.
It's just it's like you're on a call fucking waiting line,
It is.
and
It's like
I mute it because it's just like this. No,
show
I
will
can't.
resume in 4 minutes. Let's take a look at Austin Theory and circle a camera around him. And now here's Chelsea Green. Let's circle a camera. Like it's just the same old. It is literally loading
horrible.
screens in a video game.
Yeah,
And
with
it's fucking
much worse
ridiculous.
music.
I should not be paying for that.
No, for sure. And like, if you can't find a way to have USA see one thing and the people on Netflix see another thing in 2025, you have a fucking issue. I'm sorry, you just do. And I thought that the pay-per-view, while not as bad as SmackDown's feed, suffers from that too, because again, worldwide's Netflix and in the States is Peacock. And I really wish Netflix would just get the States rights, which they have an option to, but it sounds like Peacock's going to end up renewing. Also, I just wanted to mention
Spoiler
this in the
alert,
chat.
AEW can do it. Why can't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been critical over a lot of AEW things, but you got to give credit where it's due, right? Why is this
You
not
watch
showing
that
up?
on Fight in the international markets where you don't have TV deals. If you watch it on AEW Plus on Fight, guess what? No commercials. You see the action through the commercials.
That's how
Even
I
when they
used
do the
to
picture in
order
picture,
the pay-per-views.
it's the same.
Yeah. Justin says Punk still has that Heyman favor, which will probably get a triple threat with Cody and Cena at Mania. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I don't
That's
think
not
that's happening. In fact, I believe it was Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful said when comparing the ideas after Raw last night, there's a far more, and again, some people aren't going to like this idea. I'm not even sure I like it, and I'm a Punk fan. There's far more of a greater chance that you see Punk and Cody on night one against Rock and Cena on night one than that triple threat match at this stage. And I would have been okay with that match had last year not happened. But
Right?
last year happened, and it feels like we're just substituting different names in. And again, I'm someone that thinks Punk absolutely deserves a main event at Mania after what he's done since coming back. He's silenced the critics. His in ring work has been decent. His on mic skills, like we'll get to that in a bit, um, but like that, like uh, I don't know. I'm
It's
a
not
Punk
happening.
guy, and I think the favor is going to happen, but I don't think it's happening for a Cena Cody match. I think it's.
I also
it's
I see this, and I've seen this suggested by many people. What makes you think Paul Heyman has the clout to put Punk in the main event of WrestleMania right now?
Did Johnny just go Mickey Mouse for anyone else?
No, he was fine for me.
No. Oh,
I'll
I
say
might
it
have had a
again
leg
because
then.
since you have the hosting fee, I don't know if that went out of the feed or not. But
No, it might have been on
what
my end.
makes you think Paul Heyman has the clout at this stage right now to put CM Punk in the main event of WrestleMania?
For
It
that
would have
match, he
been one
doesn't.
thing if Roman had the title. Then okay, I could see that. There's a road there. But to interject in this match, what, how, huh?
Well, I mean, some people might be like, "Well, The Rock," but
Why would The Rock do that
no,
when he's the one championing the challenger? Why would he want to ruin
correct.
his
No,
guy's odds to walk out with the belt?
I agree. Well, I mean, it might be a case of lessening Cody's odds of walking out with the belt, but
Well, no,
I'm with you.
I'm going to disagree with you in the chat. They're just the same reason he had the clout to put Punk in where. No, because he was the manager of Roman's team in War Games.
Yeah,
That's why he was able to put CM Punk in that match. He is
and everyone
Roman's
just
wise
assumes,
man, advisor, agent, manager. Like, that's why he could do it.
everyone just assumes that the favor is going to be put in a match where I think the favor might be to screw someone over eventually. And I don't think we're going to wait forever to figure out what the favor is. And as it stands today, I still expect Punk to main event Mania this year. It's just not going to be night 2 because I'm telling you right now, simply because Roman's in the match, Roman Punk. I know Johnny disagrees with this, but Roman Punk Rollins is going to main event night one. Now, I might not like the match because, not that I have anything against triple threat matches, but I need more meat on that bone. I would have much rather just Punk versus Roman. We don't need Punk versus Seth now. You're burning that bridge again to next week. But
Let's not go there.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm glad I was
Or
wrong
no.
about it being a Mania match, okay?
I would have rathered it be a Mania match.
Like,
well, that's definitely not happening now.
Steel cage
There's
match?
no chance they go one on one. I saw
At least
someone
there,
suggest
it's
Hell in a
two
Cell. I'm like,
main event guys.
fine. Sorry, say that again.
The only way you could even go a Hell in a Cell route with Seth and Punk is if Seth wins this cage match. That's it.
No,
I don't even
I'm
think
not
you
saying
can do
Hell in a
that.
Cell with Seth and Punk. I'm saying Hell in a Cell between the three of them. There's no
the three of
Seth
them.
and Punk match happening at
That's
Mania.
just
It's not
stupid.
happening.
No, I mean, I personally, I hate gimmick matches at WrestleMania. Personally, I don't like them because they're far too often used as a crutch. There are very few gimmick matches at WrestleMania that I truly enjoy. I liked when Money in the
Also, I
Bank
think
was
they're
a feature of
playing with
WrestleMania
fire.
as a gimmick.
I think they're playing with fire with the gimmick matches with Punk. I love the dude. I do.
Absolutely, they are.
And he did it for change his body and taking his diet seriously. And like, if you think the Punk that is wrestling in WWE right now is in the same physical shape that he was in AEW, one, you're fucking blind, and two, you're out of your mind. That being said, he is still 46 years old, I believe, 45 years old. I think it's 46.
I can't remember what his birthday is, but
And
something like that.
all he has done is matches where he can get badly hurt outside of a Sami Zayn singles match. Well, maybe not the first Drew match at SummerSlam. You take those two out, and every other one is like a high danger match. And
I'd have to go back over this, but I don't know. Does he have a better record in gimmick matches of not getting injured than he does in non-gimmick matches?
It certainly seems that way over the course of the last few years. But like, you're playing with fire. Like, eventually,
absolutely you are.
Eventually, something's going to happen. He's not superhuman, right? And you're a little more often, and I expect them they'll use him way more often in 2025. I forgot what year we're in, but yeah, 2025. But sorry, we've been off on a tangent here, and I want to get Randy's thoughts on the chamber match too. But I thought Punk and Cena carried this match. Seth too. Seth deserves credit. Before then, I'm not going to say it was bad. I'm not going to say the other guys didn't work. I just don't think it mattered. All the important storytelling came late. And also, I've been a big fan of WWE's production and camera work post Kevin Dunn. But when they didn't change the angle after Seth got eliminated and the fucking door stays wide open for like 2 minutes, I knew what was coming. There was no... I called it on air last week that I thought Seth would screw him over. But the door is wide open for 2 fucking minutes. Like, it's like,
are you just sitting there?
I wonder, like, switch the fucking camera. You got enough of them out there. No, let's stay on this shot that shows the door wide open. I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, no shit, Seth's coming in and screwing up.
Yeah, I mean, that was ridiculous. Painfully obvious. And still, I hated it. Which is crazy to say. I hate it more because of what happened next than what happened then. I'll explain why later. But, seeing that, you're right. It was painfully obvious that Seth was not done with the match. Now, could they have worked around that? Sure. If Seth is sitting there sort of, nursing an injury or, an injury, and he's not actually hurt, like if you, sort of sell the shoulder or the arm or something that, that he's injured and can't exit the cage, and he just sits there and laughs at Punk as he loses to John, that would actually have been a better finish, in my opinion. Because at least then you have the ability for Rollins to just sit there and laugh at him and make fun of him. And, and that I'm okay with because it works for the story they're telling. He doesn't have to get involved. It's a good finish, and it gives you a chance to have John and Punk, work, which again, like I said about Kevin and Sammy, these two have amazingly phenomenal chemistry as opponents. They always have.
Even
Look
on
at their history.
Yeah, they're both older. They both don't. They're not the 2011 versions of themselves, especially Cena. Like, it really shows. And yet, when those two got together with the reversals and stuff, I'm like, yeah, these guys haven't done this in a while, but it's
You went
clear
back
that
10 years.
they knew one another well enough, and it looked
Mhm.
good and it played well. And I'll say this because I know we're gonna get to the heel turn. I want Randy to give all of his chamber thoughts here in a second. But people say that, oh my god, the turn was so shock at the end. But in reality, when you start adding up the things that have been said and done since the Rumble, they really did spell it out for us. And it's just a matter if you were paying attention or not. Like, Seth curb stomps Punk on the metal floor. And Cena's reaction's not like to be, what the fuck? And I get it. Yeah, he yells sorry, but like, he immediately takes advantage, puts him in the STF, by the way, probably the first good looking one he's ever done. And, and, uh, and Punk doesn't even tap, which, they really made Punk look good in this match in terms of his ability to kick out of shit and survive. But
Well, he had to incorporate his Bret Hart sell of the match somewhere.
well, I mean, this would be more like Austin than Bret, but I get what you're getting at. But like, so think about it. Cena lost the Rumble. Cena hasn't won a match in forever. And Cena couldn't even make Punk tap while Punk was still briefly conscious. He had to pass out. And then he gets this big moment at the end. And yet he's still not proven he can do shit in the ring anymore in terms of like results based on story and stuff and in character stuff. I liked the Punk and Cena stuff. I just thought the execution was terrible by WWE and the cameras. And, it is what it is. Randy, give us your chamber thoughts before we get to what everybody's been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same wavelength with you guys in general. Obviously, I feel like Drew just getting a roll up to get pinned. I thought that was just weak and disrespectful to Drew for what he's been doing. Didn't feel, Damien. I feel bad for like Drew and Damien just because I feel like it was just there was no chance. We knew where the bread and butter was going to be. We knew who eventually was going to be on top, and everybody else was pretty much just there. At least that's what it felt like for the most part. Yeah, obviously, Punk talking about how he's going to eliminate Logan Paul, and he did. Which I don't see why Paul was in that match to begin with, but that's just me. When you get down to the
Roman didn't want to work or lose.
There you go. Sound logic. For this, as far as goes, the other three, the final three. I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great either. You guys are talking about that one camera angle where, Seth's been eliminated, but you don't see the cage door close or anything like that. However, think about being a fan in the arena, not having to worry about, looking at the camera. You get to see everything. How much did that actually take the fans out of it when they're literally just sitting there watching Rollins just sit there? We have no clue what Rollins was doing until we saw the stomp, but the fans in the arena got to see it. There's no camera angles to hide that. So they knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. It was improper booking in that respect. You could have done so much more with that moment, and you really didn't. But as far as Cena and Punk, yeah, they have great chemistry. They always have. It was really cool to see those two go at it again, and it almost felt like they never missed a step. Like they've been apart for so long, but it's like when you have that right dance partner, it doesn't matter how long you guys are apart, because once you're back together, it's like you're making magic again. And I'm not saying it was fully magical, but it was good. It was good to see these guys go at it in a way that it just felt like they were trying to tell a really good story without Cena giving away what he was, going to do. But as far as a chamber match goes, average, slightly above average, because unfortunately it was so predictable. It kind of took me out of it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. There at no point did I feel like Cena was gonna lose, and that's a problem. That's one of the reasons why I always hate go home shows, because 9 times out of 10 you can usually tell who's gonna win, who's gonna lose, and it sucks. I always hated that trope. AEW does it, Ring of Honor does it, TNA does it, WWE does it. It's just one of those things that needs to go away. If it's a go home show, put both over. Confuse people. Make people wonder who's actually going to win. But it's interesting, like you were talking about with Cena, they pretty much told a story from the Rumble right off the bat. And then, of course, now you have all the rumors about what's going on with Dwayne, and what's he doing? Is it more than one person? Is it multiple people? So, and I know we'll delve deeper into that here in a moment, but still, it's just the pay-per-view as a whole was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't just flat out awful, but for 4 matches, I wasn't happy with it. You could have easily snuck it. You could have taken some time from both chamber matches and given us a couple of other filler matches that could have brought the excitement level up a little bit more. So, but for the amount of time we sat through that, it's 4 matches just doesn't cut it for me. But I digress. It's like let's hit the big tamale. Let's hit the big tamale here. Let's yeah, there we go. That picture says it all.
So let me say this. I'll get my stuff out and you two can go back at it. The second Cena wasted no time putting Punk in that STF after Punk got screwed. Despite earlier in the match, Cena gets in Seth's way while Punk's alert. This was happening. I had mentioned in our group chat earlier in that night, these guys aren't really going to fucking do this angle at the end of the show. And when it became clear that the angle was going to be at the end of the show, and when Cena did the STF to Punk, taking advantage of the Rollins thing, that was it. I knew it was happening, which is why I didn't go on about it in the chat. I literally looked at Jade and said, John Cena's turning heel. I don't know how they convinced him to do it, but he's turning heel. It's telegraphed. If you go back to after the Rumble, Cena, instead of earning his way, and obviously out of storyline reasons, he's filming. He's busy. So much for this being a full-time retirement tour. But yeah, no, he's busy. But in storyline, he said, I'm going to go into that Elimination Chamber because I've earned that right over the years, and I'm going to main event WrestleMania and win a 17th championship because that's what's best for business. Followed up by the way, like, it was pretty telegraphed, in my opinion. Some people just didn't put it together. Also, never, ever, ever let Travis Scott back into that role again.
Boy, have I got some bad
Not
news
only
for
did
you.
he, I know, he's training. Yeah, good fucking training there, pal. Not only did Cody get hurt, like black eyes happen in
Oh, yeah.
wrestling all the time. They're going to. But the busted eardrum, that's a problem. That is a very severe thing. And people might scoff at it, being, no, it's not. A busted eardrum can completely fuck up your balance depending on
Oh,
how
but that's
bad
not
it is.
important in wrestling.
Now you can Balance? No, definitely not the guy that springs off the middle rope and goes back into like an RKO style move or whatever the fuck he calls it. No, not at all. Um, it just he didn't need to be out there. He was out there for one reason only, to gain more media attention. He took away from it. He was distracting. He didn't fit, and you know, it's not like AEW hasn't done similar things. It's not like WCW used to do it or didn't do it all the fucking time when we had to sit through Dennis Rodman shit.
It could have been worse. Could have been RoboCop.
RoboCop. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we're leaving the
David
most
Arquette.
egregious example out of this. That's Chucky. Okay, that's the most egregious example.
I know people and are gun ho about it because Cena finally turned heel. I know it was going to grab the media attention specifically for that reason, but this didn't hit for me, fellas. Cool that it happened about 10 years fucking too late, but the way it was executed, no. I think you should have had Cena, allow Punk to get up a bit and finish him off by pinning him. It was, for me, it was telegraphed. Maybe I got lucky with predicting it. I don't know. But between it being telegraphed and Travis fucking Scott really taking me out of it, I don't, even though clearly it's been a massive success in terms of attention, I think there was a way to do this much better.
Randy, I'll let you lead off because I don't want to go forever, and then you have no time to say anything.
I got you. I was watching this with friends, so obviously, we're not paying attention to the signs, and that's fine. I think sometimes that's the fun part about wrestling is you can still find yourself shocked at times, and then when you finally go back and look at everything, you go, "Damn, it was running in my nose the entire time. I should have seen this, and I didn't. That's on me." And that's kind of where I was, because if you look at everything leading up to this, all the little breadcrumbs, if you follow the trail, yeah, it was telegraphed for sure, with no doubt. However, in the spur of the moment, in the heat of the moment, it was cool, because it's something that we've wanted for years. But Sean, you're right, 10 years too late, but at least we got it. We get to see. I mean, are we going to get a corporate Cena, or are we going to get the Doctor of Thugonomics? If we don't get the Doctor of Thugonomics, then it's a failed. It's failed. It's a big fail, because I want Cena out there ruining people's lives with words when he comes out. That's what I want to see. Do we get that? Maybe. I don't know.
Might require him to win some matches.
True.
Properly, to be putting people down with words.
But you know what I'm getting at? It's the idea of, if you want him to go, we're going to go heel, we're going to go full heel, then let's do it proper. Let's give the fans truly what they wanted to see, rather than, hey, let's show vignettes over and over again of what happened and what's transpired and how John Cena made little kids cry and things like that. Because that's all they're doing, is posting videos about that. And I'm just like, that's kind of cruel to do that, especially to show little kids crying about it. It's like, we get it. Little kids aren't going to understand John Cena turning heel. They don't, but it's part of the business. And I don't know. I need to see more. I need to see more before I can truly be like, yay or nay, because this moment, while it's cool, and let's not forget, let's give Cody all the kudos in the world, because this dude is always willing to sacrifice his body for stuff like this, to kind of put the heels over, just to kind of tell his story of being that, underdog babyface trying to claw his way back. He's good at that. And the fact that he was willing to allow a dude who's just clearly has no skill whatsoever beat on him, which, I mean, that's kind of what that was, more power to him. The fact that he's willing to sacrifice his body for that. But we know that the fact that he busted eardrum. That's not good. Hopefully, it's not severe. But he has time to heal up and not have to worry about wrestling for a while. So I guess that works out to some degree. But ultimately, let's look at the big picture here. We all were curious of who was going to be the heel for WrestleMania. We got that. Does Cena win the title at WrestleMania? Probably, just because of the help from The Rock or somebody. Heaven forbid that the asshole that hurt Cody shows up and decides to interfere again. But I don't know. I as much of a game changer they are trying to make it out to be, it's really not that big of a game changer when you really think about it. And it's a little upsetting. A cool moment that could have gone so much better, but the WWE, media machine has to keep putting it out there like it's the most amazing thing in the world. And honestly, Hogan turning heel and becoming a part of the NWO. I mean, that was more of a shock than this was, to be perfectly honest. In my opinion.
Oh, I agree with you. I don't even think it's close.
Because it's like the ultimate babyface finally turning heel, where we've seen Cena as a heel before. So this is nothing new. So it is what it is at this point.
Johnny?
I'm going to vehemently disagree with you on that. This is Hulk Hogan turning heel at Bash at the Beach 96. Because no one under the age of 20 has ever seen heel John Cena. That's why this is that big, because it's the same thing. You're not thinking about, like, you as a man in your 30s can see this and be like, well, I've seen it before. Hogan turned heel, Austin turned heel. I've seen it before. Go back to your shoes as a younger person in 1996. And Sean, you and I can attest to this. We weren't even 10 years old yet. All we'd ever experienced is the yellow and red.
I believe we were together on this night too.
You were at my place watching the pay-per-view that night. We had only ever experienced the yellow and red, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, Hulk Hogan. We'd never seen anything else. And that night, you see your hero, the man you've grown up idolizing, coming down to the ring to face down the big bad evil of Hall and Nash, the Outsiders, and he drops the leg. And you are shocked and you are speechless because you don't know anything differently. For anyone under the age of 20, this is that moment for them. I am so happy. Like, I am so happy for the kids who got to experience this, because it's like, I remember that moment. You can see the look on I see the reaction of the children in the crowd, and I think, that's me in 1996. I love this. I love that you get to experience this. And I wish that I was in a place where I had a kid watching this with them to have that moment to be like, I understand now the look on my parents' faces when Hogan turned heel that night. Because they'd seen it. They'd seen heel Hogan in the early 80s when he was first coming up. They'd seen Hogan versus Andre at Shea Stadium in 80. Like, they knew these things. They understood that, good guys go bad. It's the same thing now. And I am so... I love the moment because it is that. It is on that realm. And we can't, like... I don't want to be someone in my mid-30s talking down this because I saw Hogan turn heel. And this isn't that. But it is for them. It's that important. It's that monumental to them because this is John Cena. This is the paragon of all that is good in professional wrestling. He is the most wishes granted in history of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. This is the paragon of everything good and honorable in pro wrestling. Who just sold his soul.
So, I agree with that to an extent. But I'm glad you brought up Hogan heel in the 80s, because I was about to bring up, because I'd never seen that, right? So I was going to bring up, it's different because it was Hogan's first heel turn, but I guess it wasn't. But the other thing that works I'm not saying like that it's not important and it's not big, and I'm not trying to talk it down, because for a lot of kids, it was a shocking moment. My own kid, I had a long conversation with him the next day on the phone, and he was genuinely surprised. Um, Again, I wish I didn't feel like I knew it was coming that night, but it felt telegraphed. But the other thing is, Hogan and NWO realistically were hot for about 2.5 years after that. There wasn't a ticking time bomb on how far this can go and what you can do with it. There is here. Make no mistake about it, John Cena is leaving. Dude's busy. Dude already has movies lined up in 2026. Um, so like it to me it does devalue it a little bit knowing that there's a time limit on
I
this thing.
I won't argue that the long
Um,
term value is drastically different, and if we're solely measuring it on
and
that,
I do think Travis Scott
oh,
ruined it
I
too. You didn't
definitely
have
agree with that
fucking
wholeheartedly. He did not
you
belong
didn't
there.
have who was a big rapper in '96? Help me
96, there
out.
were no big rappers in 96.
You didn't have Vanilla Ice coming out with
Oh, good
fucking
Lord.
Hulk Hogan at Bash at the Beach, right? Like, I'm sorry, people are gonna think I'm hating. I get it. The Raw theme song's #1 in the world or whatever.
I don't even think
But
that's remotely accurate. I'd actually have to look. I'm pretty sure Kendrick
and
Lamar is still #1 around the world, but I digress.
both their music sucks in my
Well, we're
opinion.
not the
But
market for that.
No, we are
no, I
not.
know we're not the market, but I, it really took away from it in
It,
my opinion. Had it just been Cena, Rock, Cody out there,
I think
I
for
think it would have
me,
been
and this
better.
is just again, this is sort of that disadvantage of being the guy who thinks business, the guy who, when you see an angle play out, you in your head you're like, well, if you'd have done it this way, it would have been better. It's one of those moments for me. I think you would have been better playing this until WrestleMania and not doing the heel turn on Saturday night. I think you were better served literally the entire angle up until the point where Rock does the cross the chin, because he didn't even slash the throat because PG, which is another thing that pissed me off. But when he did the two fingers across the chin like a oh, look at me thing, I hated that. For one, he looked ridiculous doing it. Okay, if you're going to do the and be done with it, or give him the thumbs down like Batista, but don't half-ass the throat. Okay, if you're gonna do it, do it. But everything up until that moment could have been exactly the same. And literally, the moment you build on is that look on John Cena's face during that hug. That's the moment. Because now you can spend the next 6 weeks going back and forth on what did it mean? What went through John's head? You can have Cody playing it up. I didn't sell my soul, but did you? Are you still the paragon of everything good and honorable and pro? Are you still John Cena? And you could play that all the way through to WrestleMania, where you get to the match and Rock does, you basically sort of, again, original, new, different, most fans today don't remember the finish to WrestleMania 17. They don't know that Austin sold his soul to Vince McMahon to finally beat The Rock. You had all of the makings for that right there. Because John's been on a losing streak, because he's been bad luck John, all of those things building up to that moment where he does finally sell his soul to the devil could have been so much bigger. And again, I'll argue that, it's a bigger moment at WrestleMania. Because it is. It's WrestleMania. It's the biggest. Again, like I said, it's the night when the eyes of the entire world are on wrestling. It's the one night a year, it's now 2 nights a year, where everyone is watching. Now, they may not be watching the actual pay-per-view, but they'll be watching coming out of it because it's always sort of somehow culturally relevant. It's always a big deal because it is. It's the mecca of sports entertainment. I think it's a bigger moment then than it is on last Saturday. And I would have held it off. I would have waited. Does Rock deciding he wants to be there change the plan, and then that's when you push it up? Maybe. I don't know.
Jeez, I mean, I thought The Rock had this planned out for
That's what they're trying to
months.
make us believe. I believe
Yeah, I
that
know.
parts of
I'm not
it were
buying it.
planned all the way through. I can believe even up to the John Cena heel turn has been planned for the whole time. That John wants to do his heel turn during his last run because he never got the chance to do it before. He wants a chance to be a heel, and then, he can sort of have his, you know, uh, realization that this isn't who I am. This isn't me. and come back and be embraced and get the glorious send off that he rightly deserves after having done his little mini truncated heel turn in the middle, and that'd be fine. I don't have an issue with that, but again, going back to memes, this literally was the "Your Friend Steve" meme. And I've seen that many times. Did I send it in the group chat? I don't remember. I knew I sent the Star Wars version of it, doing the speech from Episode 3, the Anakin and Obi-Wan on Mustafar.
Yep.
Somebody edited that speech to this moment with John as Anakin, which I thought was fun. I sent that to the group chat. I don't know if you saw it or not, because nobody reacted to it. Sad face, but
No, I definitely didn't. I didn't see it. No.
But again, I saw those memes where it's like the "Your Friend Steve" meme, and Steve was Travis Scott, but it just, I don't even inherently mind him being present, because if while watching the actual PLE version, going back to the ability to edit, they did a phenomenal job of having him behind somebody for about 90% of that segment. For most of that, you didn't actually see him. He was behind John, or he was behind the cameras framed it in such a way that they could edit around his presence. It really wasn't until they were holding him down where John actually had to sort of push Cody back down, because Travis was trying to go into business for himself, which, what the fuck are you doing, kid? For one, like, they're trying to sell this moment like, oh, that was the plan. Like, fuck, it was. There's no way that was the plan. He was not supposed to hit him. He was just supposed to hold him down and be part of the moment. And then he could be there when they do the pose, and, turn that into the Tops Now card, which they've done, and they've probably made a buck ton of money selling that Tops Now card for people chasing the 1-of-1 triple autograph. Like, yeah, there's lots of money in Travis Scott's presence there. I'm not going to deny that, because I can't. Travis Scott is a genuine quantity in the entertainment sphere for people younger than we are. And that's fine. I understand that, a lot of what's in the top 100s today is music I don't enjoy. I understand that. I have no problem with that. That's life. It's like our parents hating the music we grew up on. Like, it's the same. It's the same principle.
I can't say I relate.
It's it's that same concept. Everyone does it. Every next generation hates the things. Every past generation hates the next generation's things. Your music's not as good as my music. Your movies aren't as good as my music. All of that stuff is the same. So I understand that Travis Scott isn't for me, but he is for the 15, 16. He is for the 20-year-old in the crowd watching this, because that's the music they love, and that's fine. But
Yeah, I definitely get it. I'm not sure it necessarily goes with wrestling, but I get it. I do.
everything up until the moment where he sort of goes into business for himself and attacks Cody and ruptures his ear, and and then you hear Rock afterwards say, "I told him if he was going to lay hands, if he was going to get bloody, he'd get bloody." Like, no, you didn't. You didn't tell him that. You absolutely did not. In fact, he was probably told, "Don't
You're
do
covering his
anything.
ass.
Just hold him down and let us do the work." Because, for one thing,
Dude's also
you're
high
not
as balls,
exactly,
right?
like, that's cardinal rule number one. You are not letting somebody who is actively smoking in the ring lay hands on somebody. Okay, that's no.
Yeah, no.
No.
As a guy who was a frequent smoker for a very long time, can't really do it anymore. It doesn't matter how used to it you get. High is high. There's different types of high, but if you are stoned, these things can happen, and it just feel bad for Cody. I'm sure everyone's trying to spin it as, oh well, he's doing it for the business and the company, and yeah, I don't think he expected to have his eardrum busted.
I imagine Travis was ushered out
just
to his bus very quickly when he came back through the curtain.
Yeah, I hope so.
He wasn't at the press
I
conference.
definitely hope so. Well, thank God for that. We need to keep on moving here, boys. Though we're running a little long, I want to try to get this finished up in the next 10 minutes. I gotta discuss this. So, Punk kicked off Raw because that's what you do when the other guys aren't there to follow up on what they did at the Chamber. And there was a storyline reason for it. Cena took full advantage of Punk despite Punk getting screwed. And obviously The Rock being in cahoots with Cena and Punk having history with both. This promo right here is the best promo in the WWE in many, 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 many years. It was fire. I'm a Punk guy, but I was reaching, not that I would have turned away from it, but I was reaching the end of my, happy-go-lucky Punk. I get it. This is the Punk that you need to stick with for a while now. He should be pissed off. He should be full of rage. In my opinion, this is now I'm not including Ring of Honor stuff because there's a bunch of Ring of Honor stuff I've never even laid eyes on. But I'm speaking just WWE AEW career. This is the second best Punk promo I've ever seen in my life. He was fire. This is why he's great. And a lot of it made sense. I was very happy with how they handled it. And even the brawl with Seth afterwards, Can't say I love the cage match because I think if you don't do that cage match, there is a case to make for having them go one-on-one at Mania still. That's fucking gone now. But the promo itself, I was in love with. Might have been sporting a little bit of a jelly, but it was gold. It was gold, Jerry, gold. And I don't know if he ruffled any feathers or pissed anyone off, but it was one of those promos where there was a lot of truth spoken, and dug every second of it. Now, if we can not have happy-go-lucky Punk show up 2 or 3 weeks from now, that'd be great. Just leave him as pissed off CM Punk for a while.
No, I mean he deserves to be, be pissed off Punk. He needs to be pissed off Punk. That promo was fire. I mean, I was just sat there and a couple of times I was like, holy shit, he went there. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're talking about CM Punk. He has no problem going there. So yeah, this is the Punk that we all rooted for. This is the Punk that, got us to kind of take notice when, whether it's the pipe, dropping the pipe bomb or doing this. I mean, that that's the same energy. It's the thing. That's the type of Punk we wanted. That's how he got super popular, is because he was unafraid to just speak his mind. And even though, yes, he's been doing it, this second run with WWE, it hasn't had that same passion or fire that we got on Monday. And honestly, I'm all for it. I've never had issues with Punk, whether it's his first WWE run, his AEW run, or here. I mean, he's always been great on the mic, but this is some of the best stuff he's had in a while, and I really hope that even whether win or lose against Seth in the steel cage, that he's still just pissed off until he finally gets his hands on The Rock or Cena or both. This needs to be his soul driving factor, just where he is just going straight for those two, and he's not stopping until he gets there. And I think that type of passion and drive is exactly what Punk needs to find, just to help get over with some of these, this newer crowd who isn't as familiar with him as, people our age are.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the crowd was clearly very into it last night. Biggest reaction we had between that and Saturday night in terms of crowd response. It was incredible. I really enjoyed it. Where it goes, who knows? But I thought they handled it very, very well. I'll be a little disappointed if he's just happy-go-lucky Punk in a month. Um, and like, I'm pretty sure I almost woke up my daughter by how loud I was cackling when he's hitting the forearm thing for the goosebumps. Because like, I get it, you do it a couple of times for the Rock, but then you start to do it every fucking time. It's like, okay, dude, enough. And yeah, I was cackling pretty hard at that. Johnny, your thoughts?
I mean, it goes without saying, if there's one thing that Phil Brooks has always been great at, it's talking. There's no question, and no one can debate that. He is an elite talker in wrestling. No one can debate that. You can argue about a lot of facets about him, but his ability on the microphone is unquestionable. Where they're heading to, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, did you catch the part at the beginning, by the way? I know a lot of people aren't focusing on that, but at the beginning he says, and I quote, "Some people seem to think I've exhausted all my options for main eventing WrestleMania." That's an exact quote in that promo. Again, I don't think that means Cena, Cody. I still think it's Punk, Roman, Seth, night one main event. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think Punk, obviously he's tail end of his career for in ring stuff. Dude can talk though. Wonder if he talks to himself in the mirror.
probably
Goes back and forth with himself.
probably does a bit of his promos in the mirror. That's just what good actors do. You got to rehearse somewhere. Not everything can be 100% off the cuff in the moment. I'm especially not in this scripted era. So yeah, I imagine you could probably find
Yeah.
him with his script in front of a bathroom mirror in most arenas most weeks when he's delivering a promo. He may also have a little hand mirror that he just finds a dark corner and sits and stares at himself in that, and there's nobody around. That I probably believe more likely than him using a random arena bathroom. But
I'm glad you brought up the acting point though, right? Because like you got method actors and everyone in Hollywood has a different approach. But whether you're a writer in Hollywood, a songwriter, an actor, you need to be in like the right mental headspace. And every report we've gotten from Punk being back in WWE is there have been zero issues, super helpful, helping out with NXT as well. Just he's been squeaky clean, and not just in terms of keeping his nose clean after the AEW stuff, but like seems like he's thoroughly enjoying it. So there was a part of me that said like, hey, when he goes and does the pipe bomb back in that was 2011 as well, right?
something 2010, 2011, yeah.
Something like that. He's not in a good headspace. He's pissed off. He's getting ready to leave the company. So it's easy to harness that energy. There is a big part of me, even though I'm a big Punk guy, thought to myself, I don't know if he can harness that type of energy while being just genuinely happy in life. And I think you hear that from a lot of actors sometimes, and writers too, whether they're songwriting or writing in Hollywood. Sometimes you need to be in a certain headspace to deliver that. And the guy that came out Monday seemed extremely pissed off, believably pissed off. But from everything we know, way different spot in life. So I wasn't sure he could harness that guy anymore. Maybe that's on me.
I mean, no, it's certainly, you're not wrong. It is hard to channel that intensity and anger without finding it in a place. And he pulled it from a different place, I'd say, than the pipe bomb. I still think there's a lot of real anger in there. At a lot of the things that he sees happening, and he hears and reads and sees, and that's always been pressure point for him, at least the last 5 or 6 years. Going back to his return to wrestling, he's been much more susceptible to outside voices than he was during his first run through 2014, which I think is silly. I don't, 2012 CM Punk didn't care what was written about him on the internet. He cared about how he was presented on TV. And
One would argue that's all of society nowadays.
and that's the huge difference. I would have liked him to continue having that attitude of, I don't care what's said about me, as long as, I feel good creatively in what I'm doing and all of those things. And I don't know if he necessarily had an argument about that, but we can go back and forth on that until the cows come home and never have a consensus or an actual truth. But it definitely came from a deep place. A lot of it, I don't know where that place is, but it's not, again, it's not the same place. The anger was different than it is in the past, but it was still had that level of intensity, and he was able to bring that out from wherever he was holding it and use it at an appropriate time in an appropriate avenue in an appropriate venue. So yeah, I mean, do I agree with the booking? Fuck no, I don't. I've had a lot of complaints about the booking with Punk for most of the last year, if we're being real. Even going back to his actions, with Drew at WrestleMania last year, I've had complaints since then, very consistently with how he's booked and how things go.
Yeah,
And
I think there was a way to do. I mean, this is a whole other bag of potatoes, but there was a way to have Punk involved in that match without Drew being
like a
made
bitch.
look like a not just at Mania, but at Money in the Bank as well. I'm with you on that one.
So I don't understand a lot of the booking decisions that are being made right now. I don't. Triple H is doing a great job of making me go, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, some people are pointing to, well, the internet doesn't know who's going over. Great. Anyone who actually watches the product can tell you who's going over. Like, I mean, I'll argue that no, I did not. They did actually manage to pull one over on me at Elimination Chamber. That was Bianca winning the women's Money in the Bank, or the women's Elimination Chamber. I didn't, listen to last week's show. I said there was no chance that was going to happen. So yeah, he pulled one over on me there. Everything else was as predictable as the headline of the evening news.
Oh, let's not go there.
I mean that historically. Like, you always knew what the headline was going to be on the evening
I get
news
it.
because you know what's going on in the world. I don't, but it's like, it's predictable. It's ridiculously predictable. And yes, being unpredictable is great for a booker. As long as that unpredictability, you have to be predictable in your unpredictability. Which, when you say it, you hear it, you're like, huh? That makes no sense. You can't be predictably unpredictable. But you can, especially in wrestling. You can be predictably unpredictable. And they know how to do it. Like, look at the run sheets for Saturday night. The Rock, Cody Rhodes segment was third on the run sheet.
Yep.
They went on last because of
an intentionally
exactly.
fake leak.
So, like, you understand how to.
Which, by the way, I know we've been told on this channel by certain other people that no one does that in whether it's wrestling or Hollywood or whatever. Things get intentionally leaked, people. Not all the time.
I have literally heard stories from my days when I used to work, in the local wrestling. I literally heard stories from guys in the 80s, stars in the 80s, who would tell stories about all of the crap they used to tell Meltzer just to see if he'd print it. Like,
that's fantastic.
Like, like the boys in the back loved it. Who can get them? Like, there are stories in locker rooms of bets and betting pools for who can get the most ridiculous thing printed by a dirt sheet.
That's amazing.
And I love that because that's what makes them important. Like, I want my dirt sheets to be about 20% fact, 80%, 20% fact, 50% opinion, and 30% fiction. Like, that's how I want my dirt sheets. I want more opinion than anything else, because that's acceptable to me. Is
Well,
opinion.
and as we talked about not too long ago, nowadays the dirt sheets, podcasters, radio hosts, they're all in one company's pocket or another. There's almost nobody neutral anymore. So quickly, 30 seconds or
Except
less,
us.
guys.
We're neutral.
We try to be as neutral as
Because
we can.
no big company has offered to pay us yet.
Correct. You got the right.
So, Hunter,
Johnny
Tony,
speaks truth.
Hunter, Tony, if you'd like to slide a paycheck into my pocket so I say exclusively good things about one of you, I'm vain enough. I'll take the paycheck.
Yeah, Tony, you want to line up my pockets a bit here today in this not great economy, then I'll bash CM Punk all you want if you want want to send me some cheddar cheese. 30 seconds or less, guys. How does this cage match end next week?
Stupidly.
Give me more than that. Give me a
No,
prediction.
I honestly don't know.
You don't know?
Because it makes no sense having this match on a random Raw 6 weeks before WrestleMania.
But it's
makes no
Madison
sense.
Square Garden.
I don't care. I don't care that it's the most important building in pro wrestling. It's not a match. Like, on a house show, you can have this match because it doesn't matter. Even in the modern era where, cell phone videos exist and chances are you're going to see it on YouTube or somewhere else. It doesn't matter. House shows don't matter at the end of the day. They don't. A Raw match matters because all the eyes are on it.
To me, it goes one of two ways. One, this is what's setting up your triple threat match at Mania. Roman's getting involved in this match. And maybe he goes for Seth and accidentally gets Punk. And there you go. Now you got your three-way. But if there's anything to Fightful, and again, Fightful wasn't saying this was happening. They were saying it's far more likely you see Punk and Cody versus Rock and Cena than you see Punk versus Cena versus Cody. To me, it's either what I just mentioned, or if they do go that tag team route, which to me is an awful WrestleMania main event for Punk. Like star power for sure, but meh. Then you're probably just having Punk beat Seth clean again and moving on. But my guess is this is what sets up the triple threat between the three guys. Randy?
Safe bet.
I'm gonna guess that basically, since it's MSG, since it's getting closer to Mania, I think because of Punk and his promo, this is when we see like the Rock and Cena show up, distract him, and Seth wins, and I think that's more likely. But Seth, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's because of where it is and when it is. It's hopefully it'll be a good match, but I just think this is the spot where Rock and Cena, not retaliate per se, but at least make their presence known, like that he's got their attention. I think that's kind of what this will be.
Well, we only have to wait about 5 days now to find out how this plays out. I'm with Johnny, though. I would have rather just not been on Monday Night Raw.
I agree.
But it doesn't mean I'm not going to enjoy the match, by the way. As long as they don't have Punk do something stupid and jump off the top of the cage and Adam Copeland it, we don't need to be doing that shit. But yeah, tune in next week as we'll probably review that match. And, if anything big happens on Dynamite, we'll probably talk about it too. Before we go here, though.
Yeah, it's not like they have a pay-per-view or anything this weekend.
No, not at all.
We'll see how that goes. I desperately need Moxley to not walk out of that pay-per-view as champion. I desperately need the Death Riders thing to end. It's killing me. It's killing me, Jerry. Independent Sean can't take this anymore. But anyway, Andor. Johnny's doing it. He's excited. He loves the idea. No. So what's going to happen is Johnny's actually going to host our Andor review series. And what's going to happen is it's not going to take place during the normal Fandomnation episodes on Tuesday night. It's going to take place the night after. after AEW Dynamite goes off the air. We'll be live about 10:05, 10:10, and we'll give you guys about an hour and a half to do 3 episodes worth of content. So it gives us time to watch the episodes. It won't be immediate, obviously. We still don't know if they're releasing the episodes at 3 a.m. in the morning or 9 p.m. at night, but we needed time to see them. Johnny's going to host it. It allows Johnny basically to, if he's not super invested in it, and he's been super straightforward with how he feels about Andor. If he can't get invested in it, then it allows him to be in a role that's better fit for him, and it allows Randy and I and whoever else might be joining us on those episodes to sort of take the ball and roll with it and allow Johnny to moderate it. But yes, 10:05 to 10:10 in terms of start time, Wednesday nights for 4 weeks, and we'll do each one of the 4 arcs on an individual week. I don't have a thumbnail for it, but starting next Tuesday, we will review Daredevil episodes weekly. I believe there's 2 episodes that
Yeah.
launched tonight, so it'll be a 2-episode review next week. I know we'll be way behind in talking about it, but it's the best we can do. So that is going to do it for us this evening. Johnny, where can everybody find you at, man?
Oh man, here, there, and everywhere. Over on twitch.tv/bros before pros. This Friday, WWE 2K25. We're going to be playing the hell out of that. I do not know if we're going to do a midnight stream, be on it right as it launches at 12:01 on Friday, or if I'm going to wait and do, Friday proper during the day. Then I don't know yet which it's going to be. Probably both, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't be surprised if I go live at midnight for an hour or two, and then again later in the day to actually get some good playtime in. But yeah, a lot of that coming up in the next little bit.
Well, I'll join you in about a week's time for that. Randy, what do you got going on, man?
Actually, you can find me at Giggity Giles. Now that we've got our Super Bowl review done with the Sports Brew, we're taking some time before March Madness kicks off. But you are more than welcome to go back and listen to previous episodes. Just Google Sports and Brew, and if you are interested in guys just talking shit, getting drunk, and maybe talking some sports in between, sounds like something for you. So.
The Facebook algorithm listeners that hear everything we say decided I need to see a bunch of posts from your group last week. And I'm not even part of the group. I'm scrolling through, I see sports news, and I'm like, wait a minute, sports, isn't that? And I click on it, and I see the profile pic, and I'm like, it is. Uh-huh. Yeah, Facebook doesn't listen to everything we say.
Not at all.
I thought that was just a myth. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all. Check us out on Patreon. Right now, the link is still patreon.com/fandomempire. It will be changed into the link you see above, patreon.com/fandomnation. You have our first late night with fandom episode that we did last week that's up there. We will probably do another one, if not next week, the week after.
When we don't go 3 hours on the regular show.
Yeah. We didn't have a ton of topics to discuss tonight.
We had a lot of meaty topics to discuss.
Yeah, tonight. Meaty topics, which was nice. It gave everything a bit of time to breathe for sure. But yeah, just stay tuned for what we got coming. There's lots to come. Looking forward to it. I had another point to make, but I definitely don't remember it. So good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.